Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Northeast Scene Podcast. This is Keith.
And Tommy.
How's everybody doing? And today, we've got a special guest, an accomplished musician and engineer, and a member of one of our favorite bands, Gates, Kevin Dye. Woo!
Ew.
Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're very excited about this. Gates is one of our favorite bands, and you know, we're going to get into the fawning stage of the podcast later. So
you know it's coming.
I'll prepare myself.
Prepare yourself mentally for that. But how's it going, man? How's your life going in these modern crazy times that we live in?
It's going about as good as I think one could expect. I'm healthy and safe, so that's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most important thing. I'm still working as a freelance audio producer, mixing engineer. So that's great. I got that going on. My wife is still working, which is great. We adopted a new dog, which has been really fun.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
We got some things to do, but obviously it's still pretty scary, and everything's in disarray, and it's just kind of difficult to figure out, exactly how to proceed in a lot of areas of life, as I'm sure a lot of people are experiencing. But
Absolutely. So where do you live currently?
I currently live in Greenpoint, Brooklyn.
Ah, so you're close to me. I'm in Williamsburg.
Got it.
You know, I actually bumped into you at one of your jobs on Manhattan Avenue.
Oh, yeah, at Sunshine?
Yeah, I saw you and I was like, I think that's the guy from Gates. So I peeked at the songs you were playing, like on the house system. And
Yeah.
I was like, it's gotta be. These are all bands I know. So I was like, hey, what's your name? And then you told me and I was like, awesome.
If I have one thing to enjoy out of that job, it's playing the music that I love to listen to. So that's always that was always a fun part of that job, is people come in and like, oh, I love this playlist. That was an entertaining part of that for sure. But
Yeah, and that place is awesome. That was the first time I went there, and if things ever open back up again, I would like to go again.
oh yeah, it's super cool. The owner, Peter, I've known him since I moved to Brooklyn. That place used to just be a laundromat.
Yeah.
And he gave me my first job here. I used to live on Noble Street right there. So I would walk to work. It took me 5 minutes to get to work, and I would just fold people's laundry and sweat in like 120 degrees.
Yeah.
So I worked there for a couple years before I got another job. And then eventually we did a tour or something, and I had to call him up and pull a favor. And when I went there to get my old crappy laundromat job back, he was like, oh, I built a bar. So it worked out really well. And he's always been really supportive of me and let me come and go as I please. So, that place is a really great business to support, I think.
Yeah, I figured they just build it all at once, because when you walk in, it's a laundromat. It's a working laundromat. And then you open a washer and dryer in the back, and there's like a secret bar back there and a ton of pinball machines.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It's a really cool place. Honestly, it was all pretty haphazardly done. We were like, I remember staining the bathroom on the opening night, like with one of the other bartenders, like, what are we doing? But like I said, I've known Peter for so long, it was just fully expected. And honestly, that door that looks like a washer or a dryer that you open up to go into it.
Yeah.
He was cutting that hole, like, I'm not kidding you, like 15 minutes before that place opened, and like drill that thing on. He was like, I got an extra dryer front. Should I make the door look like a dryer? Like, couldn't have been more like haphazardly done. So it wasn't planned out in any way, shape, or form, which is just how that guy rolls. So I think that adds to the charm for sure.
Oh yeah, that's how the best things always happen, just on the fly. So I'm going to take us back a bit. Now, you grew up in Michigan, correct?
I did, yeah.
Where in Michigan?
I grew up in a town called Novi, which is a pretty bland, middle-class suburb, like anywhere USA kind of. I think the most notable thing about Novi is it has a pretty large mall, which I didn't know was a notable thing about it until I moved out of Michigan. And then people I meet here that are from Michigan, a lot of times at the bar too, when I'm checking IDs or whatever, I'd be like, oh, you're from Michigan. They'd all be like, oh, you're from Novi, that really cool mall. And I'm like, I just kind of thought, well, the mall was a thing growing up. It wasn't really something I thought too much about. But that's, I guess, the most notable thing about my hometown. So it's pretty nothing, you know?
You know, malls, like I've lived in cities for so long now that I forget like what malls are like. So when I travel for work, like I've been all over in Michigan and everywhere else in the Midwest. So sometimes I'll end up in a mall and I'm like, this is cool. I forgot what this was like. This used to be like what I did on a Friday night, just walk around the mall, go to the arcade, you know?
Yeah, it was the thing to do, right? I mean, we'd get dropped off there and I don't know, go to Hot Topic and Spencer's Gifts and like walk around. What did we weren't even, I had to call my mom on the payphone to come pick me up, you know? So
exactly.
it was,
yes.
It was something to do, I guess.
Yeah. Cause you know, before like you have a car, I don't know, the mall, that was the meeting place. You're growing up in Novi. Now, have you always had an interest in music your whole life, or was there like a kicking point?
Well, I started playing guitar in 4th grade, so it was pretty early on. My parents are not musicians, but they always listen to music, and they listen to modern music too, which is I find to be kind of an interesting setup. But you know, they were really into grunge, and I remember like just taking my parents' CDs because they had Nevermind, and my dad really liked the Black Album by Metallica when that came out, and my mom loved Guns N' Roses, and so like I grew up with a lot of music, and a lot of like opinions about music, I guess, like flying around in my family, and I tried to do team sports a little bit, and I just wasn't that great at it. Not a really athletic person, so I think at some point my parents were like, you got to do something. So they got me, my grandma actually had this old nylon string guitar, and it was by a company called Del Rey, and I still call it the Del Rey to this day. I'm pretty sure it has the same strings on it that it had when I first started playing. But, you know, I learned on that for a little bit, and then they got me a Squier Stratocaster I think about a year into it. So I've been playing ever since. I just kind of like, that was the thing I gravitated towards. I think it's mostly because it was something I could do on my own. I'm pretty okay with being by myself and just kind of working on stuff and learning things and being creative. So I think that part of it appealed to me. There wasn't a lot of pressure to like have to do well or be better than anyone else. I could just kind of come up with whatever. And yeah, I've been playing ever since.
So you're more of an introvert.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Me too. Now, I used to be like an extrovert class clown, but I think I revealed too much of myself when I was young, and I don't know, people just thought I was weird, so everybody kind of turned on me, and that kind of pushed me into being an introvert, and then I became super shy and super sensitive and just cautious of everybody, because I'm like, you know, I don't want anybody like making fun of me or judging me or coming at me.
Yeah, you know, I honestly, sometimes I try to think of like the impetus for the moment that I maybe became a little more reserved, but I can't really think of a specific incidence where I would place all of that on there. But you know, I don't really ever remember being that of much of an outspoken person. I'm pretty opinionated, and I was definitely very opinionated for a long period of time, and extremely outspoken about a lot of things. But like, you know, to my 5 friends, not not
exactly.
like going around like telling everybody how I feel about stuff. I'm very like I don't know. I guess I've always been cautious, and I've had a lot of social anxiety, you know, even into adulthood. So I get really weirded out by conversations. I think way too long about if I said anything that I shouldn't have said. I'm sure after we finish this, I'll be like, what did I say? You know, so.
Yeah, I meticulously edit this thing to like make myself sound less stupid in my ears. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think about like, what if this show was live? It would be my worst nightmare.
Yeah, if you can make me sound awesome, that'd be really cool. Just cut out everything stupid I say.
I do that for everybody. You're in good hands.
You know how to edit a podcast then, you know?
Yeah, hey, I just learned. It's going great. But yeah, it would depend on the situation. Like I could be really shy or really extroverted, and I just kind of settled on being really shy and, you know, really reserved. But I had some friends that got me into like hardcore and taking me to shows, and then, you know, once I had like a solid friend base. That's always what brings me out of my shell, is like being surrounded by people I can trust.
Yeah, definitely. I think that once I learned I could form a band and have my friends join in on it, it became a kind of a different beast altogether. My brother, who is little under 3 years younger than me, he always played. He ended up picking up the bass, so we played together a lot. But then we ended up getting a drum set. Because we kind of took to it, my parents just kind of got us a ton of instruments, and it was never anything like really, really fancy. It was just like a couple $100 drum set or whatever. And then we'd get like a karaoke mic and a tape deck and all this stuff. And we'd eventually kind of amass all of these little pieces. And once we kind of became that, it was kind of, we had a couple friends that we drew into it. And then you start to kind of find what groups you work with the best, and I mean, with me, my brother, and then my best friend to this day, we were in a high school band together for all of high school. And then we formed a band in college, even though my best friend we didn't even go to the same school. And we were in that all the way until about the end of college. And then Gates was the first band that I ever had without those guys in it. Yeah. So it was, I think to say that it formed a very lasting and bonding friendship with those guys would be very true. And I think the same thing rings true with Gates. So I think like music is definitely the way I've found people I could connect with. I'm not really good at the weather talk and small talk. So I think when you're in a band with someone, you're instantly jumping into these really large conversations about creativity and what's going on in the world. I mean, we're writing these songs that are, for anyone who's never heard our band and I don't know why you'd be maybe, listening to this without knowing that, but it's like, it's kind of a heavier subject matter a lot of times.
Yes.
And,
yes.
So I don't know. I think it's something you have to trust people and know that you can kind of just jump in at that level. And I'm not saying we're not total goofballs most of the time, but it's nice to know that comfort's there and you can create those friendships just through being in a band with somebody. So
absolutely. And as I've gotten older, I've gotten okay with, small talk about the weather and stuff. You need that sometimes, but through people and music is where I've always found the deepest connections. And, Tommy and I, that's why we started this podcast. Like, we just getting together, our mutual love of music and talking about shows and just the insane amount of crazy bands that have come from our area. We're like, we should be talking about this with people. So that was kind of the impetus for the whole thing.
Yeah. And then the other thing was like, Keith, you used to go, and Keith's big thing is he actively searches out bands and finds new music. So Keith was like this conduit that just consistently sent me awesome stuff. And actually that's how I found Gates, was through Keith just texting me, you have to check this band out. Like it's that simple, is that we really just bonded over the fact that we liked the same style of music consistently, like every time. We were like, oh yeah, that's dead on. That's exactly, you hit my taste, like completely accurate.
Kevin, do you have a friend who has like pretty much close to the exact same music taste as you?
Well, I was going to say that I think the person who would be the Keith in my life, especially growing up, was my friend Bob.
Yeah.
Because I met him in sophomore year of high school, and I think he finds a lot of like joy in finding bands that people are really going to like. He wants to figure out your taste.
Yes.
So if he found a band, he'd be like, you know what, I think Kevin is going to love this. And he'd play it for me and I'd be like, I hate it. And he'd be like, dang, why doesn't he like that? All right, I'm going to find this other thing. I'm going to play him this, and honestly, a lot of the stuff he played me early on would be like, he played me Death Cab when they were first a band, he's like, this band's amazing. And I'm like, this sounds like shit. I hate this band, and like they're probably one of my favorite bands of all time. So, he definitely was ahead of the curve on a lot of bands. He sent me a lot of bands that I wrote off at first, and then ended up loving. So he was definitely like the Keith in my life for sure. He was that person who was just constantly showing me new stuff.
Yeah, finding a new band that I absolutely love and a song I can listen to 15 times on repeat is like the best natural high for me. So I'm I'm always looking for it, and you know, I just know I can send Tommy anything, and we're pretty much in sync, like for the most part, and that's a rare and beautiful thing.
It is really, because it's really nice whenever I get a text and I see that there's a Spotify link to it. Like I kind of get like that like chill moment of like, yes, this could be the next song like that I get like obsessed with, and I just play on repeat for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah, I mean that there's truly nothing better than that feeling of hearing something for the first time that just blows you away. I feel like as I get older and older, I come across that less and less. I don't know if it's because I don't have a friend who's necessarily showing me these things, or I'm jaded and I've heard a lot of stuff, or I'm just kind of like, you know, settled in what I like, or I don't really know what the cause of it is, but it's pretty rare I come across a record and I'm just floored by it at this point, you know?
Yeah, it only happens like once a year, maybe, but I look forward to it whenever it is going to happen. So, Kevin, you sound like me. Like, I was really negative and just like a hater when I was young, and it was mostly because I was just like, I don't know, I was just unhappy. So I would be like, oh, that sucks, or I'm not listening to it because of this, and I still have some of those tendencies, but I've definitely dropped a lot of it. So yeah, there was a lot of bands where I was just like, I'm not listening to that, and then they ended up becoming my favorite bands.
I actually have Anthony Green gave me Promise Ring. He made me a tape. Yeah. And he was like, you got to check out Promise Ring. And I was like, okay. And I remember at this time, keep in mind, I was like into like Mushmouth and like Coming Correct and like the toughest tough guy, like crazy, like Diecast and stuff like that. And I remember him giving it to me and I was like, oh, this is bullshit. The guy's like singing and it's like, oh, corny and shit. Every time I drive my family down to the shore for the last, 10 years, I play Nothing Feels Good in its entirety. Like I listen to the whole record beginning to end, and to the point where like my daughters, when we get in the car, they're like, put on the shore music, put on that put on the shore record. And
that's like, beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing. Sometimes it just stuff takes a minute to get to you, or it has to grow on you, or it's the last thing you would expect on earth to just like fall in love with, and I would say definitely I think my feelings stemmed mostly from jealousy almost. I think like, for one, I was always into recording and production, and very early on, I grew really attached to that in tandem with music. I was attempting to make records that sounded like as good as all my favorite records on, crappy recording equipment, and always thought, if a record didn't sound good, that it was bad. There was always that roadblock for me. I would say that Death Cab record is a great example. Like Something About Airplanes is a really raw sounding record. It was clearly recorded on a pretty low budget. So when I was younger, not like I knew exactly what I was listening to, but I just knew that sound didn't appeal to me. I was really into like Mark Trombino, like Jimmy World Bleed American recordings, So I wanted like, I came from the Andy Wallace, Nirvana, Rage Against the Machine days. So like it needed to be up to that quality of those like giant grunge records from the 90s. So when I started hearing these other bands that I really loved, like I was obsessed with like Finch in high school because it sounded so good. It was a Mark Trombino recording. Listening back to it now, I'm like, it doesn't sound as good maybe as I thought it did, but
tastes do change over the years.
But yeah, I'm like, for some reason that was something that really resonated with me, and then on top of that, I think in my music scene in general, I think that's where kind of the jealousy thing came about. I think I was always trying. My band in high school was kind of goofy. We had a lot of songs that I would say borderlined on being jokes. They were kind of tongue-in-cheek and intended to be a little funny. Yeah. We had our record was called Fight the Power, and my brother drew the cover art, and it was like anime, and we were all anime characters. And the song Fight the Power was not not a political song in any way. It wasn't based at all on the track that we clearly ripped the name off of, but it was just a song where we said 1, 2, 3, 4, fight the power, and then people would do the wall of death to it. So it was just a joke. It was kind of just a funny joke a little bit, but at some point, like my friend Bob was in a really cool creative band that I loved, and everyone thought that they might actually get signed or something because they were so they were actually really good, like good and creative. Not to say we weren't a good band. In a lot of ways we were fine. We were probably better than I think I expected us to be. But I think I saw that and I'm like, I really want to make this kind of like really creative music that is taken really seriously. I want to be really taken seriously as an artist. So somewhere along the lines in high school, I really got obsessed with that idea. And I think I was always kind of trying to play catch up with myself after that. So I became kind of this opinionated guy where I would write off a lot of stuff early on for random reasons, and then later circle back around to it. And even to a certain extent, like circle back around to it and it would become my favorite band of all time, but never seemingly learn the lesson of like, well, maybe I should have come in to this with an open mind to begin with,
Right.
So that went on for quite some time. Even the beginning of me becoming a producer, I feel like I was a little forceful with my opinions on bands that I started working with and kind of thought it was that my way was correct, even though this is clearly an extremely creative field to be in and there is no right way to do anything. I mean,
Right.
anyone could tell you that now. I mean, they're making hit records on laptops. So to be, I don't know, to be like high and mighty about anything now just seems really foolish to me. So, but I definitely carried that mentality with me a long time. And again, I couldn't tell you where that came from,
Yeah, I did too. And I think when you're younger, you just think, your way is everything. And I was like that too. And I think a lot of it just came from insecurity. Like I would make fun of everything because like, I don't know, it's easier to make fun of everything than to like have an opinion and stand by it. Cause like, what if someone shoots it down or says it's stupid? And I don't know. And I was just like, no, what I like is the best and what everyone else likes is stupid unless it's what I like. Like, that's just the way it is. Like, I remember going to parties, like, with normal-ass people and, like, putting on Converge, and everyone would be, like, getting so mad at me, and I'd be like, what? What, are you going to listen to Sublime, man? Like, and just being a disturbance, and,
I relate to that so heavily. I mean, I swear, even to this day, yes, we bought a dog pool so we could put it we have, like, a front driveway, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been 95 degrees here, so we're like, let's cool off, let the dog cool off, and we went down there and my wife put on some like top 40 country stuff.
Yeah.
Which we like to listen to, just for whatever. It's fun. It's always produced really well. So I'm always like listening in on all that. And I went to the store to grab some White Claws because we were going really leaning into it. And when I got back, she had made a phone call and like disconnected from the Bluetooth. So I connected it and started playing Explosions in the Sky. And she was like, really? Like, because still to this day, I'm like, I'm gonna put on Sigur Rós this morning, and she's like, dude, I don't want to like feel horrible about everything right now. Can you put on like, can we listen to like Dua Lipa or something, So I totally relate to that, and I definitely was that person. Like, listen to this weird obscure. Why isn't this weird obscure random band the biggest band on earth? Like,
yeah.
For obvious reasons to everyone but me, apparently.
I used to have no barometer for that whatsoever. Like I'd be hosting a party and I'd put on like Explosions or Caspian or like post rock. A lot of post rock is not like party music. So so now when I'm like at my girlfriend's house and she's like, "Do you want to put on some music?" I'm like, "No," because we're gonna choose between like hardcore and post rock and like hip hop. Then those that's not dinner time music for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. I'm right there with you. I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm not going to be the DJ. That's why when honestly getting that bar job, I learned about a lot of bands because I kind of was forced to find stuff that wouldn't be completely jarring to people coming into a bar just to enjoy. And it's a weird bar. It doesn't need to be like top 40, but like, I would like, all right, I'm going to dig into some shoegaze stuff, and like, I don't even know who Ride was until I made a playlist at that bar,
Oh, really?
and I was like, oh my dude, this is, and of course I think Nigel Godrich produced it. So it was like, of course it sounded amazing. And like, I'm like, how is this made in the 90s? This sounds like it came out like 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and got really into a lot of music that I didn't have any idea about prior, because I had to kind of force myself to be like, all right, well, no one's going to listen to Donna MIDI in like a bar. So I got to come up with like, I gotta find something cool,
Yeah. So what were your early bands like? What was your thing? Were you guys playing hardcore or post-hardcore, or like what was going on?
Well, like I said, my high school band was kind of corny.
Yeah.
But honestly, people, it was that American Legion Hall days, and we were renting out, the Legion Hall and having 8 bands on the bill all day.
Oh yeah.
And everyone from the high school came, and we were kind of the pop band in the high school. I mean, like, people you didn't expect to come to the shows were coming there and like singing along to our songs because they were pretty accessible and easy to get. And obviously we were Blink-182 fans too. So
yes.
I think that probably had a little bit to do with the kind of like funny stuff. So it definitely was all over the place though. It was like, and we played some covers. We played Juliana Theory, Movie Life, and then we covered Faith by George Michael, but also by Limp Bizkit. And that was the song that I sang for some reason. So that was a really random one. But it was just all over the place. I mean, we had a song that was like, kind of sound like a Beatles song. And then we had one that was straight up like a Blink-182 ripoff. And then we had like a kind of post-hardcore-y song.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, we didn't have any sort of identity. And then in college, I started a band, and that was when I was like, I'm going to, make this really artsy fartsy prog record that is really over the top. And my best friend was the singer and the lyricist, and he's a brilliant writer to this day. And his lyrics in that band still inspire me to this day. But they were words no one knew. It was like he was writing about like things that like I had to look up the words he was using. So it was so far the other direction. Like no repeating parts, stuff that was always just beyond the limit of what we were actually capable of playing. Like you'd see a video back of us playing live, be like, yeah, I didn't play any of those riffs correctly. It was always like just too hard for me to really be able to do well. So we were all just trying to stretch ourselves to the limit. Mm-hmm. But that was definitely influenced by like early on by like the Mars Volta and At the Drive-In, and like later on, I remember Thrice put out Visu during that era, mm-hmm. and I remember being like, fuck, this is the record I wanted to make. Like, and just falling in love with it because it sounded so similar to what I was trying to write at the time. It was kind of like incorporating these weird kind of like elements and starting to get into more atmospheric stuff and incorporating pedals again. And
it's funny when that happens. Like a record will come out and I'll be like, no, that's what I was doing. Like, oh man.
Yeah, and like why I was bummed that like Thrice put it out, like I was ever get to that level, But me being bummed about that quickly wore off because that's, to this day one of my favorite records. But and then that band, The Receiving End of Sirens, I was really into that. First record they did that had all those motifs, and I started really getting into that, which carried into Gates, definitely carried into Gates, and we still do. But that was definitely from that band. So I was getting into a lot of stuff like that, The Sound of Animals Fighting and RX Bandits, and like bands that were, again, I was really into like what bands were doing now and how I could kind of like jump off from that at that point. I wasn't kind of digging in my back catalog as much as I'm sure I was influenced by the bands I grew up listening to. It was mostly me trying to come up with really cool riffs and just like play as fast as we possibly could and jam as many weird words and melodies into stuff as we possibly could, So it was really like just shoehorn every idea kind of a thing. And then that band broke up and I moved to Kingston, New York to intern at a recording studio. And at that time I was getting really into post-rock stuff and kind of working on my own album. And that's when I ended up kind of messaging the Gates guys and getting involved with them.
Right. They had an ad up on what was it? Absolute Punk. like saying
Yeah,
our band
correct.
needs a singer?
Yeah, they had like a, I think they put it up on Tumblr or something, and then Absolute Punk picked it up. But
Yeah.
that's how my best friend who sang in my previous two bands, he was like, "Hey man, you should sing for this band." And that's basically how that ended up coming about.
You had minimal experience singing before, right? You were singing Faith. Did you sing in the other band, the prog band?
I did kind of like backup singing, like alternate, because again we would try things where there would be two vocal lines happening at once. You know, getting heavily influenced by the Receiving End of Sirens, and so I did some of that, and I kind of quit doing it because I started playing guitar parts that were, again, almost impossible for me to play without also singing. So
Yeah.
I kind of quit singing backup as much because I started playing really insane guitar parts. So I honestly hadn't sung for maybe 3 years. Like I definitely was attempting to sing over my solo record that I was creating that we ended up using a bunch of parts for and gate stuff. So, but you know, I hadn't sent anybody anything. I was terrified to send them that part. I sent it to my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, and was like, you know, she's the only person I sent it to, and she was like, "Oh, it's really cool. It sounds like Clarity or something."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, I'll send it to him then." You know, like I was like, that was like a keyword I could totally be like, all right, if it sounds like Clarity, it must be at least okay. So
Yeah.
that was what kind of gave me the confidence to send it to him.
And it's scary because when I moved to New York City, I was trying out for bands and trying to put bands together, and like I didn't even get to the audition most of the time, or like actually sending anybody anything, because I would just get too scared and, like, I don't know, bail out, or I was just too messed up at the time to actually follow through. So I don't know, it's a big risk. I don't handle rejection very well.
Yeah, exactly. I think, you know, like, just off of what I said earlier, just kind of being really insecure about a lot of things, you know.
Yes.
And you know, I didn't listen to Lydia, but you know, Ethan was in that band Lydia that, you know, was a lot of my friends really loved them, you know, and I saw them play a show, you know, and they were playing shows that I want to play, and it was kind of this thing where it was like, well, it's on Absolute Punk, which is something I always wanted my band to just get a post on Absolute Punk, you know, and this band didn't even have a singer, and they were already getting that, so there was a little bit of that where I was like, all right, I'm already a little nervous because maybe this guy's he's going to be like a little bit of an asshole. Maybe he's going to be kind of like a, you know, because he was in this like band that was kind of bigger on. I don't know. I kind of expected him to be
Right.
harsh on me.
Yeah.
You know, and he was. I mean, Ethan, he definitely was. But
didn't he ask you like ahead of time, like, do you have a Flying V guitar or anything like that?
Yeah, that's right. He asked, when he called me, he asked me if I had a Flying V.
Yeah. Now I understand that, because it is kind of an aggressive question, and it's, you know, it's like assuming things. But I put a band together a couple years ago, and the wackiest people would show up, and I had a guy show up, and he had a 5-string bass, and I was like, all right, but he just somehow never learned the songs, and I was in such a rush to get into the studio that I didn't really notice. So, you know, we'd stop, like, these are pretty simple songs, like, you know, drop D, play the root notes, post-hardcore type stuff. So we'd stop playing, and he'd be snapping and popping and doing his best Les Claypool impression. And then I'd be like, hey, could you play the D note? And then
follow along.
Yeah, and he just couldn't do it. So in future band announcements, the band ended up like disbanding, or it's inactive. But in future band posts, I was going to say, please, no 5-string bass players.
I see. I think you just attributed the 5-string to like the Les Claypool playing style. You know, I'm not saying that those things don't go together often.
Yeah.
You know, like you may be right to assume that if someone with a 5-string might come in and start slapping the bass. But,
yeah.
Or they're going to come in and play like Cannibal Corpse riffs.
Yeah. Like there's a higher likelihood that it might go wrong. I recorded a band called Actor Observer, and their bass player had a 5-string, and he was awesome. And that band is amazing. So I guess he's an outlier in the 5-string graph, I guess.
Wait, does Gates have a 5-string bass player, or am I imagining that?
Nope, we do not. Mike plays a grabber most of the time, and he plays a P bass. He played a P bass a lot on Parallel Lives because I wanted it. I wanted to sound. I wanted the P. I always want to record the P bass, but oftentimes he just plays the grabber because it sounds dope too. So it's like splitting hairs.
The P bass is good. I had one of those. So yeah, I listened to the first podcast with the making of that album. So you sent them a demo, right? And then they wanted to meet with you, Gates.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I basically. I mean, to off of what you said earlier, you're kind of right. You know, if I showed up with like horrible gear, and you'd probably get a good example of what you wanted from my gear. You know, I guess you know what I mean. Like if I had like a Jackson Flying V, I'm probably not going to be the right guy for the band, right? So
exactly.
They didn't want me to drive all the way down there and then have to have this awkward conversation with me.
I'm going to go ahead and say this. Presentation is important to me. I want it to sound good, and I want it to look a certain way. I've always kind of been into like fashion a little bit, and I'm really into the aesthetics and the presentation. So if I'm putting together a band and a guy shows up with a 6-string bass, wearing shorts and like high top sneakers, like I might not be into that. And that's just me.
Keith, you probably wouldn't let me in your band. If I show, for sure, I would show up in like mesh shorts and a t-shirt and be like, "Yo, got flip flops and shit on."
I would just pull you aside before the show and say, like, "Look, could you wear pants?
Could you wear jeans and a black t-shirt and just fucking? Can you just mute everything else that you do normally?"
That's definitely an unspoken thing where you're like, "Oh wow, everyone just came to the show wearing jeans. This is gonna work out."
Yes,
like
yes. And it's so awkward to have those conversations. So if it just works out, like that's the easiest way.
It's the only way, because I don't think that anyone in my band would have had that conversation necessarily. You know what I mean? It's just like, nah, like we'll just be done. That's kind of how it was. They like cycled through like a lot of bands before we landed on Gates. So it was like, it was a match made in heaven or something. I don't know. It's just like a really weird, it was bizarre. I mean, I felt like I knew those guys forever.
Yeah.
The day I met them. And it's not to say there wasn't extreme growing pains with creating the music after that point, because again, I was really opinionated and I always thought that my way was correct. And, for the second EP especially, I was very much like trying to kind of do my own thing because I didn't want to have to write these really complex songs anymore. I was kind of over that.
Yeah.
So that part of it was difficult. But as far as like feeling like we knew each other and we were best friends right off the bat, I mean, it was just like we were talking about earlier. I mean, on the car ride down, I remember talking about all these bands and just being like, they'd be like, "Yo, what kind of guitars are you into?" And I remember I was like really into Cody from A City's Burn, and they had just put out their last like record, and we were just talking about how good it was, and they were like, "Yo, put that on," and then they'd be like, "Have you ever heard this band?" I can't. Again, these guys told me about so many bands I'd never even come close to hearing about, so that became a really, really fast learning process of like, Minus the Bear, huh? Yeah, I never really listened to this band, like stuff I probably should have come across, but it was a mashup of like, I like this thing, they like this thing, this guy likes this thing, and it was very quickly just like tossing ideas around, but it still felt like it almost felt like I had grown up with those guys. They felt like they brought me in with open arms, and I just felt like I belonged in that band pretty quickly.
And without knowing your story, I figured that was the case. It just seemed like you guys all kind of grew up together.
Yeah, it's pretty odd because, people always ask where we're from, but I'm from Michigan, Ethan's from Nebraska. So it's kind of a weird, we're like not from New Jersey. All of us aren't from New Jersey, So that kind of brought an interesting element to the band, I always thought. It was, Ethan clearly grew up listening to a lot of American football and like a lot more of like the kind of true Midwest emo stuff.
Yeah.
As well as a lot of great alternative rock bands, but he also has a very particular, taste in like 90s alternative rock. That was stuff that was, although he introduced me to like Nine Inch Nails, like there was also like a lot more pop leaning stuff that I never really got into. So, he brings that and his style to the table. And I think having him and myself having grown up in just completely different scenes, especially when we started playing in New Jersey, I think a lot of the people in New Jersey in that scene had just kind of been interchanging in bands with each other for so long that when we showed up, it was kind of like, it sounded different because we weren't from there and no one had heard us do our thing yet, So it was surprising and interesting to people. And I think that helped us early on kind of gain, traction with a lot of the bands that we played with that would ultimately end up getting us shows and becoming our friends. So
yeah, when you have a lot of different tastes and you put them together in one band, sometimes it can end up being a disaster, but in this case it sounded like it really worked for everybody.
Yeah, I don't think they were far enough away that it would have been
right.
A complete shit show.
Like if you're listening to like Primus and Cannibal Corpse and Mineral, like if you put those together, that's probably not
Badmouth. Cannibal Corpse is awesome.
Hey, I didn't say they were bad. I'm just saying...
it's the three of those combinations. Okay, I got you. All right.
It could be dope. I don't know, man. I'd like to hear that.
I frequently send Keith like stuff. I'm like, yo, check out this band that's like super heavy stuff, and he's just like, ugh. He's like, what are you? He's like, very new metal. Get rid of that.
There's an acceptable level of new metal, right? There it has to be just the right amount. And the bands, some of the heavier bands Tommy likes, they just smash that scale. Like they're way, way over. It's just
they're way on the Korn barometer. They are high on that end sometimes. Like they all play, like they all have 8-string guitars. Let's put it that way.
We read the whole Korn. Fieldy has like an autobiography.
Oh yeah.
And we like Mike, our bass player, read that aloud in the van on the Pianos Become the Teeth tour, and then we're like, you guys gotta read it. And then we gave them the book, and it just like made its rounds around the tour because it was so like hilarious and bad.
He has like one of the most outlandish. I remember seeing like videos of them playing. I'm like, is he actually playing the bass? Like he had it like near his ankles. I'm like, what the fuck is going on with this?
And he's just kind of bashing the shit out of it, like.
That he actually describes how he came up with that sound in the book, and it's fascinating because he basically is like, Ross Robinson recorded their first record. They go in there, and he's like, Fieldy is saying this, he's recounting this, and he's like, I went in there, and they had a perfect bass tone set up, and they had it all ready to go with all the mics in front, and I just went and I turned all the knobs all the way up to 10, and I just started hitting the bass, and I was like, this is my sound. And I can just imagine being the engineer and being like, oh, fuck. Like, holy shit, man. All right, get the de-esser out, guys. Like, this is going to be a fucking nightmare. Like, and he was so proud of it, And then we started looking up YouTube videos of him, and he's just, like, got a signature bass. And all he's talking about is, like, how the fretboard is painted white. He's just like, yeah, the fretboard, it's painted white. So, like, yeah. He has no clue about the sound, the pickups, none of that shit. It's just like, it looks fucking cool, right, guys?
Isn't it funny how much care and like everything we put into the presentation and making it all sound perfect and all that, and then the guys like Fieldy can just come in and be like, no, I'm just fucking like doing this, and then like it ends up being huge.
That was definitely that era for sure. Like I think they said their first tour was in an RV, and they like 2 shows in, and they were opening for Deftones, okay? And 2 shows in, they were like, we're gonna disband unless you get us 2 tour buses to like the label. I'm like, yo, you fucking wow, man, I would love to see you do like one day of the first tour I went on. Like, let's see you do it, man. Like, it's just hilarious stuff, But that's a good book if you're interested and you do want to lean a little into the new metal.
I remember seeing it was in this was years ago in Barnes and Noble. I remember seeing, how did we get on Korn? Fuck, man, this is my fault.
Oh, I'm all about it. I'm all about it. I want to talk about Linkin Park too.
So I don't remember which guitar player. It's either Head or Monkey. I know that sounds insane, but one of them like completely it became like a born again Christian and left the band, and he wrote a book. And I remember seeing the book like in like the Christian lifestyle section of Barnes and Noble, and I was like, is that the guy from Korn? Like,
Yeah.
and he hasn't dropped. The aesthetic is completely still fucking Adidas tracksuit.
Yeah.
The goofy braids and everything, like fucking exactly like that. But he's like talks about Jesus. I was like,
I think he was
shit.
a drug guy, and then he became a born again.
Oh, he did. I mean, they were crazy because Fieldy actually did the same thing. We didn't read the last chapter, which is he like became a born again Christian, and we're like, yeah, we're good. I think we're good on the last. Like nothing funny is gonna happen in the last chapter, right? But like the stories they're telling, you're like, no wonder these guys. I mean, like, holy shit, I can't imagine just having like millions of dollars plopped into my lap, and then like, you know, just doing the things that they did. They were completely inexcusable. Like the behavior that these guys had. I mean, like, you know, like I'm not the moral, you know, compass for anybody, I guess, but like I'm also just like, holy, like, dude, I just felt scummy, like even reading like one sentence of that book, you know, like I would have to spend the rest of my life like looking to the sky, hoping someone could forgive me for these horrible acts that I committed, you know, including defacing the earth with my music. So,
oh my God, I just bought the book on Amazon just now. I literally just went on and bought it. It was fucking 99 cents. How could you pass that up? Fuck, man.
You're going to love it.
You're shopping while recording this
soon-to-be
classic podcast?
Look.
The fuck?
I did it. It takes 2 seconds. You just have to go on to Amazon and type the word Fieldy in. That's it. It's the first thing that comes up.
It's a one-click buy. I mean, you got to do
dude.
it.
My wife is going to be like, what the fuck are you buying? Like, why did you buy? Who is this? And be like, ugh.
So we're driving down to the very first meeting with Gates, right? Now you must be extremely nervous.
You know what? Honestly, at that point, I had been living in complete isolation in Kingston, New York. I was working at a recording studio up there, and I had nobody to talk to except for the head engineer there and the one assistant. And they treated me like shit. I mean, honestly, the dude was the head engineer there was he was nicer to me than he probably could have been, but the studio itself was Levon Helm studio, so it was Levon Helm from the band. It was his house, and he had a studio there. Now Levon Helm was the coolest, nicest guy. He was so cool. He, you know, everything you'd ever want him to be, he was. But the people that surrounded him and ran the studio, some of them just had some really weird ideas, and like, you know, they had catered dinners every Saturday for like the band and all the crew, and then they made me eat pizza in the corner.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Just me.
That's fucked up.
Just for anybody that doesn't, I had to look him up real fast. So Levon Helm is the dude from the band.
Correct.
So he's the drummer from the band, and that's insane. That's one of those things where it's kind of like, look, I understand, but at the same time, you're like, you really kind of shrug your shoulders at stuff like that. It's like, is this a power move? Like, what is this? Like,
yeah, I want to make it absolutely clear that Levon himself and the entire band had nothing to do with this. It was like the managers that ran that place.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
He was the sweetest guy, and honestly, everyone in that band were legends, and they were so cool and taught me so much. I mean, they taught me what a good amp was. Like, they let me hold their $60,000 guitars, you know, like they were great, you know, and I learned more at that internship than I learned since. You know, it was an absolute amazing opportunity for me, and I learned so much also about the band and all the guys that played with the band, all the bands that came through there, all the people that came through that wanted to be involved in that. And you know, Levon was recovering and from cancer at the time, and he, you know, was putting on these shows as a benefit to that. The problem was a lot of people came out of the woodwork to latch onto that. That shouldn't have been there. You know, they weren't doing it for the love of the music. And those were the people that decided for some reason, because I was the intern, I was eating pizza when they could have just ordered one more serving of chicken or whatever, you know, like, and just make me feel really weird and isolated. And so I think it was things like that. And the fact that I went like home and lived in a studio apartment by myself. I was having a long distance relationship with my girlfriend. Like, everything felt really isolated and weird. And, you know, I really started searching out bands to make friends. And so I was just excited to talk to people.
Yeah.
Which seems, it's weird for me to say that because a lot of times I'm fine with it, but I'm sure people can, especially introverts, can relate now in the time of the pandemic where, you know, if you sit at home by yourself long enough, you long to talk to people, you know, you long to talk to your friends again. I mean, I miss hanging out with the dudes and Gates more than anything in the world right now, you know? So it was one of those situations where I was just stoked to be like talking to people that like the same kind of music as me. That probably helped me a lot get over that kind of social anxiety problem that I have a lot where I would have felt a little nervous or that I wasn't good enough. And honestly, I didn't really have much material besides the stuff that I came up with for the one song.
Right.
So I was mostly sitting there just listening to them play me stuff that they had written the first day, you know? So I didn't really have to do anything. I don't have to prove myself until the next couple times. That's when I started to get nervous that maybe they were auditioning other people or
right.
So I started kind of being like, hey guys, like, am I in the band? I need to know if I'm in the band. Like, I really need to know if I'm, you know.
Like, what is this? What are we doing?
Which, you know, looking back again, like everything was so dramatic. But, you know, of course, Mike, the bass player, is just like, yeah, there's nobody else. You know, so we just started recording pretty soon after that. It was pretty like seamless. And then, you know, I learned all these awesome things at Levon Helm Studios. And so now we're recording in my apartment, you know, and in the basement in New Brunswick, and just on my 8-channel DigiDesign 002, which is like it was pretty great at the time, but I think by the time I got it there, it was falling apart a little bit because I had it for 3 or 4 years, and it only has like 4 mic pre's, and it was pretty hard to kind of make a record on that stuff, you know. But we pulled it off. I'm still happy with it. I still listen to it, and I'm kind of surprised that it sounds like that.
Oh yeah, we still listen to it a lot. Now, when you guys first played together, like Walls, you know, that was like almost a throwaway song at the time. Like you were like, you know, someone was like, well, we have this other song, Walls, I guess we'll play, because you only had 2 before that, right?
Yeah, they had A Vague Ambition and Burn Us Alive were the 2 songs that they played me. And then, you know, they played me those 2 songs. They're like, yep, that's it. And I was like, all right, well. And they both those songs, they kind of sounded similar to me. You know, I remember turning on my producer hat and being like, and also kind of being like, are these guys all one note? I mean, is this everything sound like this? You know, like I wanted there to be variety. I remember kind of being like, you know, I wanted to play piano, and, you know, I really loved this band called Anathalo, and they had all these like auxiliary percussion instruments, and I wanted to like play what we now call the emotion tom, you know, like the one guy on stage playing a tom, you know. But I wanted to do stuff like that, you know, and I wanted it to be all like weird and eclectic, and so I was just looking for anything else they had to maybe indicate that they were kind of doing other stuff. And they played In the Morning and Walls, which indicated to me that they had a kind of a broader palette, because In the Morning was a little more exploratory and kind of like dark and weird sounding, and then Walls was more upbeat. Yeah. So, and I remember them playing Walls specifically, and being like, that's going to be the song off the CP. You know, that's going to be the one that we're going to be playing at every show for the next 5 years.
And I hope you continue to do that, because I got into you. I listened to the second EP, which was You Are All You Have Left to Fear, and then I got into the LP right after that, Bloom and Breathe. I didn't even know the first EP existed. This was back when I was still fucking with like CDs and like downloading music and stuff. So then I get on Spotify and I see, holy shit, they have a whole other EP, the first EP, that I've never even heard. So I fire it up, and Walls just instantly seized me. And this is a song that Tommy and I like rave about continually to this day, but just obsessed with it, like from the first time we heard it. And I was like, oh my God, like how did I not know this existed? And that I discovered that song in a time in my life that was just perfect, which I'll get into a little more later. And just the lyrics to that song has kind of become like the story of my life time and time again, like where I just need to like let down the walls and, you know, let things happen and let people in and like just stop fighting so much. So, you know, thanks for writing it.
Thanks for listening. I mean, I definitely, I love when that happens, when I realize a band has material that I've yet to dive into.
Yes.
You know, I think for me, the prime example of that would be Radiohead, where I got into them in college and I decided that I was only going to listen to like one record every 3 years or so, you know, until I was basically like, all right, I've listened to this like to death, because they had a decent amount of material, you know, at that time. Even they were like, in Rainbows was just coming out.
Right.
So I've been kind of systematically listening to that band, and like I haven't even really listened to Hail to the Thief like at all. So like,
oh wow,
that's a record that's like, I'm waiting for the moment to like unbox that, you know, because the band is so important to me and I love them so much, and they, you know, they time and time again I put that on and I just find their records to be you know, similar to what you were saying. I just relate to them so emphatically, you know. So I think to have stuff from them, knowing that they're continuing to make music, but also like there's records in their back catalog I haven't quite dived into yet, is kind of nice to know.
That's amazing. So you haven't heard Hail to the Thief yet?
I think I listened to it one time and I was like, no, I can't dive into this yet. I'm on Amnesiac right now.
That one now, yeah. Hail to the Thief is actually the last Radiohead album I've heard, but I just kind of stopped listening to them. You know, not that I necessarily dislike them or anything. It's just, you know, you just kind of get over bands sometimes.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
But Hail to the Thief has this one amazing song. I can't remember the title, but he says like, I'm up in the clouds and I can't come down. That's the track, man. I still remember that one.
All right, when I come across it,
yeah,
I'll know.
Remember that track. Yeah. And Amnesiac, Knives Out. I mean, come on, that's a classic.
Yeah.
That was a track that got me into like, all right, I'll start listening to this record. I'm gonna put Kid A down finally. And that and Ethan always plays I Might Be Wrong on guitar. But dude, Pyramid Song has to be one of my favorite Radiohead songs. That loop that ends it too is like, I don't even know, what is that sound, man? I love that. I love that they make sounds and I don't know how they did it, you know? It's really, really amazing. They encompass a lot of just what I love about music in general. So, you know, I know it's a total like band guy, like, you know, like college dude band to get into, but
100%.
You know, everyone that plays our kind of music like loves that band. You can't not. You know?
And they're one of those rare bands that can keep growing and keep changing and like still be relevant and just kind of call their own shots, and that's cool because not a lot of bands get to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I loved their last record, and I actually saw them live 2 summers ago. I started getting really into seeing like doing bucket list bands because of what I do, and my wife works for a record label and she was a publicist before that, and you know, we get to go to a lot of shows for free, but then we would miss out on a lot of our favorite bands would come into town. Like I still have not seen Death Cab live, which is insane to me, and I've had tickets like 3 times and never get to go, but you know, I finally was like, I need to see Radiohead. You know, I had a health scare a couple of years ago and was like, I need to go start just doing this, you know, and my buddy does their merch and he hooked us up and I was like second row for Radiohead. And wow. It was incredible, you know, and they played a lot of stuff off their new record. So I'm really happy that I'm still up to date on them and really enjoyed their new record. Cause you know, they played almost that entire album and then a handful of other songs. Mm-hmm. And I really love their new record. I mean, their songs on there they're amazing. So it was really cool to hear that and see that live, and they were fucking incredible, you know. So
going back to what we were talking about earlier with just like, you know, myself being negative and just not listening to things. Kid A came out and it was like a sensation. Like people would not stop talking about it. So I was like, fuck this, I'm not listening to it. And it took me like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years to finally listen to it. And of course, when I did, I really liked it.
I see. My thing with Kid A was there was a video store when I was in college that went out of business, and they were selling all their stuff for like super cheap. And I bought a copy of Vanilla Sky.
Yeah.
And they use everything in its right place. And for some reason, just that part of the movie and that song, I remember my friend Chris Riley and I were sitting there and we both kind of looked at each other like, what the fuck is this, dude? We gotta find this, like, immediately. And I worked at the radio station, so I, like, literally got on my bike and rode down to the radio station. I'm like, do you have the Vanilla Sky soundtrack? They're like, probably. You can start looking. And I remember, like, pawing through it, being like, all right, I got it. Hold on a second. I'm gonna go just rip this real fast. I'll be right back. They were like, I was just obsessed with that for so long. We learned, Riley and I learned how to play it on keyboard and everything. Like, we were fucking nuts. We went nuts with it, dude.
I definitely looked up how to make that sound, because it sounds like a Rhodes piano at first, but it's synthesized, you know?
Yeah.
And as the song goes on, you hear them open the filter up and it kind of like, you know, you're like, oh shit, it's a synth, you know?
Yeah.
I've definitely sat for many hours trying to recreate that sound of that song. But it was the same shit, man. So the guy who showed me Radiohead in college showed me the national anthem off of Kid A, and then he showed me, I think, Paranoid Android, and of course I was like, national anthem's like a bunch of horns blaring jazz over this like bass line, and Paranoid Android is like a prog rock song. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get OK Computer.
Yeah.
And then I was obsessed with that record and was kind of like, well, I didn't really like that other song, so I'm just gonna stick with this. And I think that's how I kind of ended up having that idea to just kind of wait on it. And I'm glad I did, because, you know, I think if I would have tried to listen to Kid A, then it would have been way too minimalistic for me. Whereas now it's fucking perfect, you know?
Yeah, I kind of want to adopt your philosophy on music, though, because I don't know, Keith, if you can relate to it, but I rip through music so fast.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I have to really start being more careful when I listen to things, because the fact of spending even a month on a record to me would be like, after the third day, I'd be like, okay, I need something else. Like, I got to be more careful with stuff like that, and just being a little bit more, trying to be more aware of what's going on. I think a part of it is because you have such a underlying knowledge of how things are recorded, but I never even think about sound. I was just okay with it being like, yeah, just put it on the piano setting and kind of like...
I mean, dude, that's a blessing, honestly. Sometimes I wish I could do what you're describing, you know? Like, I'm a dissector. I like get something I like, and then I obsess over it and listen to it 10,000 times and try to figure out how everything was done. And I think that's how I became a producer and became, you know, good at producing records, was trying to reverse engineer shit that I loved. You know, how did they come up with that sound? Cool. How is that, like, you know, why does that sound good? How is that mixed? You know, playing my songs against my favorite. You know, it's a common practice to kind of put up the goal mix of something you really love, and then you think you got your mix good, and you switch over to that other song, and you're like, God damn it, it sounds fucking amazing. Like, well, how'd they do that? You know, and I'm sure I'll never achieve that lofty goal of like, wow, I'm gonna make this sound like Pyramid Song or whatever, you know. But I think that mentality is what kind of made me want to do what I do, and kind of made me get into the kind of music that I'm in and creating the music that I create now, because I have a really hard time, and I've been trying to lately, and I would love to spend less time working on stuff, but I have a really hard time not spending way too long making music, because I have to pore over every detail, just like when I listen to it, you know?
Yeah. And you want that quality in an engineer. Like me, I'm like, here's the idea, make it sound like this. I'm the idea person, but like you need someone like you who will labor over it and like find that perfect sound.
It's like, you ever hear that Bill Burr bit where he's like, I don't understand why Steve Jobs is so great. Like, and his whole thing is like, Steve Jobs would just walk into a room with a bunch of like scientists and be like, I want my whole music collection on a phone. Do it now! Like, he's like, why is this guy a genius? He walks up on stage, he just fucking tells people what to do.
I mean, he's a genius because he got the job of just telling people what to do and getting all the credit for it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know what that's the American dream right there, is like to have a job where you do nothing but tell people what to do and get all the credit. That's why he's a revered genius, you know.
Thousands of nameless, faceless engineers and programmers worked their entire lives to make this thing happen, and that dummy gets up on stage with a fucking turtleneck and no belt, and he's like, hey, fucking look at the iPhone. phone. It's like, fuck, man. Like, Jesus Christ.
And no belt. I'm glad someone else noticed that too.
Like my uncle worked for a car company, and anything that he came up with invention wise while he worked there, they just automatically get the patent for. It's like in the contract.
Yeah.
And they'll give you like a bonus. They'll give you like $500, and then it's in every car.
Yeah.
So it's like, dude, that's so fucked up. Like, he invented shit that's in every single car, and they give him $500 and send him on his way. Like,
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. So I as a part-time job, I write math curriculum for different schools and a company that has like all these online tests you can make. So I write questions for them, but like the contract I signed basically says like anything I write immediately becomes their intellectual property. So like they're like, I was like, well, how does that work? I was like, can I use these in my classroom? And the first thing she was like, she didn't even hesitate. She was like, absolutely not. It's like, but it's a word problem. Like, I don't fucking, can I change it? Can I change the name? Like, instead of Julie, can it be Kevin? I don't and she was like, absolutely not. She's like, you are writing for us. And I was like,
how are they going to know though?
Oh, they won't. Like, I mean, no one would. They're going to send us, a spy into my 6th grade math class to fucking find out that if I'm using their problems.
Imagine there's like a 42-year-old man in the back, like wait
some guy comes in a suit and tie. Here's your new student, and be like, all right.
Something's not right here.
Oh yeah, Kevin, we have a silent clause that anything you say on the podcast becomes ours. So
you're more than welcome to it.
We own the band now, and we will be using your voice sampled in our lo-fi hip-hop project.
I would love to hear that.
Yeah. No, I wish I had one, but that's all a lie. So I'm segueing back to Gates now.
Fine.
Okay, so I discovered Gates, I think around 2015. Now, I was like, I need some new bands. I need some like new emo type bands. I need a new band to listen to. So I Googled like all the big name emo bands at the time, and I didn't like a single one of them except Gates. Now Gates, I had heard that band name a couple times, and it was perfect. It's like post-rock with vocals. Like, that's right up my alley. Tommy and I are like huge post-rock fans. So the first album I heard was the EP, You Are All You Have Left to Fear. And, I think the first song I really got grabbed by was To Those Who Fell and To Those Who Carry On, that 1-2 punch. Now, I experienced loss early in my life. My older brother died. He was diabetic. So, of course, I just connected to this song in like a crazy instant way. And I think it's one of the best songs lyrically and musically ever, just like in terms of loss. Just, I felt a crazy connection to it. So, one, thank you for writing that, because the 1-2 punch of that is just incredible. And two, what is that song about? Is it someone you guys knew?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm sorry that, I'm sorry you have to relate to this song.
Yes.
It's always unfortunate that we share, these horrible experiences that these things end up being cathartic for, but that song was about my wife. She had a friend who passed away. He was, I don't know, goofing around with his cousin's gun, and it accidentally went off.
Oh.
I was at the guy's house, and we were recording demo vocals for You Are All You Have Left to Fear, I think. Mm-hmm. Or we were trying to record the actual vocals, because we did them at my apartment originally, but then I don't know what we were doing. But my wife called me and was obviously like hysterical, and I was like, I gotta go, and I just up and left.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I'm really lucky in that I haven't experienced a ton of that type of loss in my life, at least up to that point, and that was really shocking for me. You know, it was like, wow, I was hanging out with that guy like a month ago.
Yeah.
You know, and he's gone. And I think about all the things that we did together, and you know, it was really, really just like earth shattering for me.
Yes.
And I was just kind of looking for a way to just, you know, talk myself through it, which is what writing just is for me, you know. And I wrote that song Stream of Conscious, just I just wrote it out like that, and I made it work with the song, like lyrically. I didn't have any like melody ideas or anything for that song yet. That was like a kitchen sink song where, you know, we had the amount of riffs that went through, and we did a podcast where we kind of dissect that, a lot of the songs off that record, and we kind of go into the detail of the music of it. But I didn't really talk about the lyrics of it because it's obviously a difficult subject matter, and a lot of my lyrics I like to leave them up to the interpretation, but that one is very, I mean, it's very obvious.
Yes.
That it's about a very specific event, because
Yes.
it was straight up just written like straight out of my head, as if it was a diary entry, you know. And there was just something about it. I mean, a lot of times when I finish writing a song lyrically, I just start crying, and I kind of just know it's done. And it's like, that's like a horrible, I guess it's such a horrible like thing to kind of think about, but and not to get just like obviously get completely like heavy as hell here, but
no, we do that a lot, so feel free. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like a couple years ago I ended up having cancer, and that kind of changed my entire perspective on life. And it wasn't actually the surgery or the cancer, like recovering from that like was hard. It was my point of view on like life just completely changed. So that was like that tragic thing that just kind of never really happened to me, that like all of a sudden I'm like, this is what everyone's walking around with. Like, what was I even talking about before?
Yes.
Like, this is like the things that I was complaining about before, just like pale in comparison to this. And like, it was so hard for me to accept that, and a lot of things, accept so many things, you know. And luckily I ended up doing a lot of like therapy, and I had like a life coach for a while, and they helped me change my perspective on a lot of this stuff. But you know, I think still to this day, the way that they told me to deal with this stuff is like, you know what, if you're feeling like you need to cry, just do it, you know. And there's so many times where I just lose it, you know, because you're just overcome with emotion and overwhelmed, and it feels so good to just let it out and be like, all right, well, just go on with my day, because there's just these heavy feelings that I can't ever get rid of now, that I just kind of have to mediate and like learn how to deal with. So I think that was one of those moments early on, before it was kind of something that I just kind of learned I'd have to deal with for the rest of my life. You know, at that point it was just a single tragic event, and you know, to be able to like write that song and just kind of just, you know, have that emotional breakdown, and kind of brings a little bit of closure to that immediate shock, you know. And yeah, there's definitely like I always think about this. I always try to put this line into a song for a while, but it's from the Kurt Vonnegut book, Cat's Cradle. But there's like this little poem in there. It's like something like, tigers gotta hunt, birds gotta fly, man's gotta sit and wonder why.
Yes.
And I feel like I just sit around and I just wonder why so often. I mean, even like today, when you get up and you read the news, you're like, why does shit have to be this way?
Yes.
You know, and there's no real answer to it. You're not going to come up with the answer to that, but I think like to try to reason with yourself a little bit, I guess it helps at least a little bit, you know? And that was definitely, it was an absolute shocking, senseless thing. It was this crazy accident, and you know, you wish you could just go back and make it not happen, you
Right.
know? But I think the biggest lesson I ever learned in my life is that you can't go back to the way it was. You have to take the things that happen to you as learning experiences and apply them to your life moving forward, because there's no way to go back to the before time. It doesn't exist, you know? So
Exactly.
to try to kind of move on with that. And I think the song, you know, in a way, it's his memory that I get to kind of have with me, you know, a little bit. And it's also a lot for my wife because they were really close. And, you know, I think that it was a lot of me looking at her being really upset too, and kind of trying to like reason with that. But you know, it's just something that it's a moment in time kind of immortalized in a song. And
Yeah.
it does disappoint me and upset me that people relate to that song. But like, you know, as I say a lot in my records, you know, we all die. So I definitely, you know, like that's going to happen. People are going to relate to this stuff, and this shit's going to happen. And like, to be able to have something, I guess, to comfort you and get you through the times as it did for me, you know, I find that that's typically the discussion I'm having with people. And that makes me feel honored, you know, it makes me feel that I did something really good for someone that maybe I don't even know.
Exactly. And that's what I was going to say, because, you know, death is going to happen to all of us at some point. And those, you know, it can be shocking and jarring. And it's definitely shaped my life in the form of losing my brother at a young age. Tommy lost his father at a very young age. So to find the words like in this song to just so perfectly capture the way you're feeling, like it's a gift. It's just so helpful.
Well, you know, I'm glad that's the case. Honestly, it's so hard to write something like that and then to sing it over and over again.
Oh God, yeah. I saw you guys say like it's just too emotionally taxing to play. So it's a once in a while thing. Like if the energy is right, which I totally understand, and I totally understand because I can't even listen to it most of the time. Like it's it's same with me. It's like a time and place thing.
I got to be in the right headspace to hear that. And actually, I was gonna say, Keith and I have discussed this before, but we use that song as like a kind of a touchstone of like, this is a time when I realized like I needed to slow down. I needed to kind of like take stock of what I have and recognizing the things that are holding me back. And what it's really come to with me is like I realized that the things that are largely holding me back is me. It's my behavior. It's the mistakes I continually make. Like I always think of I read a book a while ago and there was a quote in it about like you can either play your life like a video game where you either learn from your mistakes and move forward, or you keep getting defeated by the same boss. And it's like, fuck, man, it after the 15th time you've made the exact same mistake or done the exact same thing that ends up in something that's, you know, not pleasurable or something that's, you know, causing harm to the people around you. And you're just like, fuck, man, like why do I keep making these same, they're rudimentary things. Like they're simplistic. Don't do this, do more of this. And yet we trick ourselves every single time.
I don't know if it's human nature or like just certain people in general, you know, to repeat those things, you know, because I'm the same way. And I would say that what you said is 100% accurate. I think I spent a lot of my life blaming other people for like shortcomings in my own life, only to realize later that it's like, I got to get up every day and like put my nose to the grindstone and get stuff done, or else like things don't happen for me. You know, it's completely my own doing. And even if it's not, there's always something I can change, including the way I intake criticism or shortcomings, or, you know, like the music industry is a place where you can do everything right and nothing can happen.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really hard to take that, especially as someone who's a sensitive person who's always like, you know, what did I do wrong? Sometimes you didn't do anything wrong, and just learning that in and of itself is enough to be like, all right, well, let's make another record. Let's go. Let's move on. Let's make another song.
Yep.
Let me start another band. Whatever, you know, like, and just do more and not sit around and be so obsessed with how things went in the past. You know,
acceptance is the really hard piece. You know, there's been so many times over the past couple years where I'm like, this is what my life is going to be. This is what I'm going to be doing. And when it didn't work out that way at all, it was just really hard to stomach, but I've gotten better at it.
One of the things I keep going back to, remember you guys were talking about, like, you know, kind of being introverted and kind of like dealing less with people and being like overthinking things because you're like, oh my God, I said that wrong. Or you dissect things in terms of conversation or motives behind people's actions. My one daughter, like the twins are named Evelyn and Eleanor is named Eleanor because right before she was born, I was reading a book that Eleanor Roosevelt read, and it was called If You Ask Me. And there was a quote in it, and I actually wrote it down because it was one of those things that I'm like, I don't know when this is going to be useful, but it's actually really useful. And I tell my kids this all the time now. You shouldn't worry so much about you wouldn't worry so much about what other people think if you realized how seldom they actually think of you. Like, it's negative in the fact that you're not the focus of other people's lives, but we tend to say, like, oh my God, I said this or I did that, and you go over it and replay it, and you try to think of, like, oh, what I could have said in that moment or what I should have said in that moment. And what you ultimately realize is, like, you're fighting yourself. You know, the French have this thing called l'esprit d'escalier. It's like the spirit of the staircase. It's like when you're leaving a party and somebody insulted you, and on the way out, you're like, fuck, that's what I should have said. Like, it comes to you. Like, I've been in, like, moments of, like, you know, contemplation of, like, just, like, you know, taking a shower or something like that. And you're replaying arguments I had with people 3, 4, 5 years ago and going, damn, that's what I should have said. And I catch myself in those moments now and go, what the fuck are you doing?
It's always in the shower, too. Like, I'm always in the shower, and I'm like, oh, man, 10 years ago, if I would have said this to that dude, I'd be like king shit.
I'm the worst on runs. I go, like, when I go running, and I'm out there, and it's like, I'm listening to music, and I should be really just focusing on how I'm running, what my breath is like, you know, getting energy from the song, whatever it is. And in my head, I'm going, like, do you remember that time that dude bumped into you, and then, like, this, that, and this? And I'm like, fuck, man, like, what a dumb thought to enter my brain right now. I shouldn't be focused on this stuff, but yet you continually go back to it. And it's one of those things that as I get older, I realize, like, my daughters don't listen to a shit ton of stuff I say, but they watch everything I do.
Did you ever think that maybe it's because you say too much?
It could be that.
No, everything he's saying is, I think, is really, really true. You know, like, I relate to everything that you said. You know, I think it might be, again, I don't know for a fact, but, you know, I ponder often if it's an evolutionary trait to have these thoughts when you're, like, idle, you know, because you're trying to learn for the next time, but it's for some reason hard for us to differentiate I'm learning for the next time versus, like, I need to be, like, stuck on this thing that already happened, you know? So that's, like, the part that's so hard to break away from, to be like the email thing is a great example of, like, you know, then the last time this conversation happened, I said something and it didn't go great. Why don't, you know, like, I'm going to change it this time and see if it's any different. Like, that would be, like, the norm, the really, like, great way to go about, you know, the healthy way to do that. And then most of the time you're like, I'm just gonna say the same fucking shit and be pissed off that this person, you know. And it's like,
that's my biggest struggle right now. Is my biggest struggle is that type of stuff. I can get very resentful very quickly. Like, I'll message somebody I know, like somebody I really know, and they just won't respond. I'm talking, like, nothing, and I'm like, okay, this person is now my enemy. Like, how dare they just completely ignore what I said? I get real caught up in petty stuff like that.
I mean, I'm prone to ignoring things,
Yeah.
honestly, on my phone, because especially in the summer, because I can't unlock my phone with like a sweaty thumb.
Yeah.
And then I can't like type on it. So I have like messages on my computer. So if I'm at my computer and I'm like working on a song or something, I'll like be really quick to text people back. And then when I'm off of it and I'm on my phone, I'm like way worse at texting people back, simply because I can't like operate the hardware.
Yes.
You know? But I often think that I'm like, do people think I'm like just straight blowing them off because you know, I don't want to do that. And then I'll see a text that I like totally missed and I'll be like, God, I feel like such an asshole for missing that. But I like looked at it and like someone will send me a song or something and I'll like listen to it and then just never text them back, even though I did listen to it and like love it or whatever. And then you're like, shit, now they think I didn't like it, you know, or something like that.
Exactly.
And yeah, I think you're supposed to learn and be like, all right, you know what? I need to text people back right away, right?
Yeah, it's impossible to keep up with all of it, though. So that's why I just try to check my ego and be like, dude, like Tommy was saying, it's not all about you. People are busy.
I think that's another point, though. Like, we're talking about the shower and going on a run, right? You're having all these kind of like thoughts when you're away from all the distractions.
Yes.
You know? And I find that that's so fucking difficult now, especially now, you know. I think I got through a week where I was leaving my phone in our bedroom all day, and it was like, it felt so much better to not be like stuck on Instagram and stuck on the news app and like clearing my mind a little bit and reading like actual books and kind of like thinking about lyrics, because a lot of times lyrics for me are like pieced together over months where the song is just rolling in my head all the time. So it's like, you know, the riff's playing over and over and over again. And then I'm like, all right, I'm coming up with the melody. All right, this maybe, and then, all right, maybe this is what the song's about. And then I'll type the one line into the note app or whatever, or write it in my notebook. And then a month later, oh, that's the second line. You know, you can't do that when you're constantly distracted.
Right.
You have to have those moments of like, and that's why you come up with those things in the shower or when you just get up or like when you're on a run, because that's when you do that thinking. And that's why, you know, meditation was heavily recommended to me, and I don't do it nearly enough, because when I do, I feel like I'm able to work out those things and come to the conclusion calmly, you know what I should do next time? This.
Yes.
And then when the occasion does come up, I'm like prepared for it, you know, as opposed to, oh man, this band just sent me 720 mix notes. Like, I'm going to type a heated email back to them about how I'm never going to do this. You know, it's like, luckily I don't, you know, I'm not as like crazy as I once was about that. I'm gonna be like, all right, you know what? I'm going to do these 700 mix notes and it's going to sound way better.
Yeah.
You know, like it's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, it's an interesting point. Definitely. It's definitely something I do think about a lot.
So you said you had a health scare. Now, if you're okay with it, can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how long ago was it and what exactly was going on?
It was in the summer of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
So just now, 2 years ago.
Right.
The surgery was 2 years ago on July 10th, I believe.
And what kind of surgery was it?
So I was having some problems during the Parallel Lives writing, starting to kind of just be coughing a lot, and like I developed like a wheeze. Mm-hmm. I was just wheezing all the time, and I went to the doctor a few times. I thought maybe I had allergies, and I did like a breathing test, and they were like, everything's normal.
Yeah.
And they kind of decided I had like a node on my vocal cord. Mm-hmm. And so, because I kept not being able to sing either, it would be completely random. One day I'd be like, fine. And the next day I'd be like, you know, I can't sing at all. Mm-hmm. And I did a bunch of vocal lessons, and like that was supposed to help. That was also when the vocal coach told me that I brought into Those Who Fell, into Those Who Carry On. And the reason we don't play it a lot is because it's insanely out of my vocal range.
Yeah.
And she taught me how to sing that high note, and I was like, you can do that one show a week.
Yeah.
On tour. So that was where I learned that maybe I shouldn't be singing that ridiculously high. But you know, it didn't get better. Like, and I remember being in the studio for Parallel and being like, just not feeling good. And like, I remember doing Forget, the first song on the record, and like Mike Watts, the producer, was like, sounds great, sounds great. I'm like, I'm done. I'm not doing it today. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't feel right. Like, and then the next day I was fine. And it was something that just came about. It was really odd because I'd been working really hard at being better at singing this whole time, and all of a sudden I was going in reverse, and so I knew something was wrong. And then at some point I was walking somewhere and I coughed up this giant like chunk of blood, and was like, shit. And I seriously was standing with my wife just like, I don't know what the hell that is, and we just kept going. I was like, I can't even fucking think about this. But then I started thinking, do I have cancer? Do I have like do I have something really serious? Because when you're young, you just don't even think about it. You know, it seemed impossible. And I'm a really, I'm not a big risk taker, and I'm a big worrier. So, you know, you'd seem like something I might have thought happened to me way earlier. But, you know, I was like, I don't really know. And I went to the doctor, and they couldn't find anything. So, right before my birthday of 2018, in April of 2018, I woke up and I had like a horrible fever, and I felt horrible, and I had pneumonia, it turns out, and I had to go. I actually flew home to Michigan to help my dad, who had just had cancer, kind of recover. And I was like coughing and wheezing and couldn't talk. And so they took me to the hospital in Michigan, and they had to pump me full of antibiotics and shit. And they were like, all right, you know, you'll be fine. And they sent me home. And then I was doing some stagehand stuff in May of that year, and woke up the next day, same shit.
Oh man.
Like 104 fever. And I was like, it was like that scene in Spaceballs or whatever, where he's like, oh no, not again. You know, and I'm just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
You know, like, and even then I'm still like posting on Instagram kind of like these funny shots, because we didn't know what the hell was going on. I'm like, and they kept putting me in isolation because they thought I might have tuberculosis or something. So, and it was over Memorial Day weekend. So I spent 5 days in the hospital because no doctors were around because they were all on vacation. So I was in like an isolation room, and my wife, Sarah, could come in with like a mask on, and, you know, obviously a very scary kind of mirroring of what's happening to so many people right now.
Right.
But they basically came back in and were like, you know, there's something lodged in your bronchi. And they kept saying to me, like, could be like a piece of broccoli. And so I kept thinking like, it's like a chunk of something.
Yeah.
I've heard that before. People aspirate things when they're eating, and they just don't recognize that it's, you know, literally, like they go, oh, that went down the wrong pipe.
Yeah, right? Like I kept thinking about like, is there a time? I mean, I remember discussing it with my wife, like, oh yeah, remember that time I was like coughing on that? It must be that. Again, you know, even when you're like, and they set me up with a surgeon and sat me down, and he was like, did anyone tell you what you actually have? You know? And I was like, nope. He's like, you have this thing called a lung carcinoid tumor. So it's actually an endocrine tumor. So it could be anywhere in your body, and mine just happened to be in the bronchi of my lungs that attach the upper right lobe of my lung to the rest of my lungs. So it had to be surgically removed. It's a really slow growing tumor. So it was very minimal chance that the cancer had spread to anywhere else in my body. So they were confident that if they just surgically removed it, that would be that. But the risky part was they were removing my upper right lobe of my lung because the 2 bouts of pneumonia had basically deflated it, and it was essentially useless. So they had to remove part of my lung, and then he had to reattach the bottom 2 lobes of the right side of my lung to the rest of my lungs, because in order to get rid of the tumor, he had to actually sever the bronchi that attached the entire right side of my lung to like the rest of my body. So if he wasn't able to actually reattach that, or scar tissue developed and blocked that, you know, I would have lost half my lung, in which case I would not be a singer anymore. So, you know, he was telling me, you know, the prognosis was good, that he was one of the best surgeons in this entire field, and one of the guys who actually invented the procedure was in the room when it was happening. I mean, I feel really blessed I live in New York at this time, because I was able to get extremely great medical care.
Yeah.
And pretty quickly went, like, in July, obviously. So it was like a month later, I was sitting there waiting for the surgery, you know? So it was a pretty quick thing. I didn't have a lot of time to think about it. But I did have to obviously prepare for the off chance that I might die, you know? So that was kind of weird. Like,
yeah.
Calling my friends being like, oh, these records I didn't finish are on this hard drive.
Oh
Will you
my
finish
God.
mixing these? You know, like, and just weird shit like that. And things I never ever had to think about before,
Yeah.
you know, like, and like I said, it was, I mean, obviously the surgery was horrible. It's apparently one of the most painful surgeries you can get. They didn't, they cut my back. It's like probably 12-inch incision on my back. And then they broke 2 of my ribs.
Ouch.
So they could like get in there and pull my lung out. And then I had these 2 kind of tubes sticking out of the side of me that were like draining out some sort of fluid out of me. I mean, I can't even describe to you the feeling of all that when it was occurring. You know, it was pretty horrifying.
Yeah.
So especially with what's going on now, it's really kind of it's kind of insane to look at people who have clearly not gone through anything like that, acting so reckless and irresponsible in these times, because I don't want to spend 60 days in the fucking hospital. I spent 6 days there recovering, and that was bad enough. You know? I straight up, that's 100% true, because dude, I could not have even told you what this was going to be like.
Yeah.
No one can prepare you. Up until the point of the surgery, I was like, yeah, whatever, I got this. It's fine.
Yeah.
And then I was sitting then they were about to put me under, and the guys were like, you're so calm. You're like fine with this. And I'm like, yeah, what else can I be? You know? And like, I was kind of joking around with the guys. And then the next thing you know, I woke up and I'm like shivering, like I'm freezing and sweating at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even comprehend the amount of pain I'm in. I'm being rolled down the hallway and I'm like, dude, you just wake up from this thing and you're just mangled, you know, like I have to imagine that's what it's like to just get hit by a car or something, you know, and you wake up and your just body is just destroyed. And then you have to recover from this thing. I mean, you can't even get up. I had to like do laps around the unit to try to get my strength back, you know? So it's like 1 lap. You got to do 1 lap the first day and 2 the next day. And I always did twice what they wanted me to do, because I just wanted to get back to being healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to have this weird, like, this like plastic tube thing you blow into to kind of increase your lung capacity again.
Oh
So,
yeah, and it makes the little balls, like the little ping pong balls rise up. Yeah.
It's kind of fucking fun, you know? Like you had to
Little
you had
game.
to, and it shows how much your lung capacity is. So like by the end of it, I was like getting all the way to the top. I was like, if I can get this all the way to the fucking top again, like they're like, oh, 400's great. And I'm like, I'm going to do 550, you know, like, so I would work on that fucking thing to get my lungs back to full capacity. Cause I knew, you know, I wanted to obviously sing again with no problems.
Yes.
and not have any sort of like lingering side effects from this. And luckily, physically, like I could tell you probably 99% of the time, I don't feel like anything happened. I have nerve damage from the incision, but I mean, we were just joking around the other day, and we were singing, and obviously I fucking sing all the time, so it's a little unfair, but we're like, how long of a note can you hold out, you know? And I like held out a note longer than my wife, and I was like, and she's a singer too, and a great one, but I was kind of like, it makes me proud. It makes me proud to know that like I'm technically at a disadvantage now, but I was able to kind of work through it, and now, you know, I feel like I can sing better than ever, you know, which is awesome. It's great. It feels really great, and to have recovered from that. But the mental part of it was the part that was really hard, and also the part that no one wants to hear about. So that's where it gets really difficult when people are like, so how'd that go? You know, the part I just told you is interesting to people, and then They're like, oh, so you're good now. You're healthy now. So cool. End of story. I feel better because I know now that if I'm young and I get this, I could do it too. And then when you're like, well, no, I'm like terribly depressed.
Yeah.
People, they're just like, I don't want to talk about that. You know, like no one wants to have that discussion with you. That was, luckily I learned that early on where I'm like, all right, man, I'm not going to bring that up anymore at like the bar after 2 beers. Cause people are like, I want to go home now, you know, but
that's something we've kind of talked about on the show. And well, I was going to say, like, for me to connect so deeply with your lyrics time and time again, like you must have gone through some shit, and it definitely sounds like that's the case. But my life was a mess for such a long time. I like really struggled with like various substance abuses and that type of thing. I used it as a way to get over my introversion and just my being terrified of people. It was like a shortcut to connecting with people and just getting over my own fear. And I just remember so many nights at bars, like all messed up, like blah, like telling them my life story, like my brother died and this and that. And people were like, whoa, okay, I'll see you later. Like, you know, and then like people wouldn't want to talk to me. And I was just completely dumbfounded as to why. And I was just making a spectacle of myself, which looking back on it now, it's like, oh man, I wish I didn't do that. But, you know, I got over all of that, and getting over all of that kind of coalesced with me like really connecting with your band. So, you know, just I rediscovering different songs, like Walls became like my anthem, and The Thing That Would Save You, and just defining new meaning in all these songs and just really connecting with them carried me through like some of the darkest times. So I thank you and the band for that. But there's so much work to be done after you get through the darkness. I mean, I lived my way a certain life for like 15 years. So I had to learn to live like a normal adult human at like age 35. And that to anyone listening, like, you know, you don't have to do this shit alone. Like, you can't sit in your house by yourself and will a new life into existence. You can't necessarily like read a book and be like, okay, I'm going to stop acting like the person I've been acting like for the past 20 years now. Like, there's resources out there, there's help out there. Kevin, you know, you mentioned you had a life coach, and it sounds like you had some help. I found my particular brand of help, which I'm still partaking in every day. Like I said before in another episode, you got to find your fucked up community who's going to help you and get you through the darkness.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I think, you know, therapy definitely changed my life for sure, and especially helped me accept what my life is now. I mean, I think the biggest problem I was having was I kept thinking I was going to recover and then things would go back to normal.
Yes.
And then I kept waking up with this, I mean, memory that I can't get rid of. You know what I mean? So like, you can't undo that. It's just going to be there. You have to learn how to live with it and deal with it and accept it, you know? And just learning that fact alone was like so incredible for me. And like, there's so many tools that I learned from that, you know, and luckily that, you know, the insurance that I got on because of my wife, luckily, they ended up kind of just calling me out of the blue and basically being like, well, we offer this to people who, you know, had recovered from cancer. So
that's great.
I got lucky in that regard, you know, but still, it appalls me how difficult it is to access those things, because I think people, they hear that all the time. They hear the like, you know, you don't have to do this alone and we're here for you, but your friends, they don't know what to say.
Yes.
You know, like everyone's been that person, and like, that's okay. And they're trying to help and they want to be there for you and they love you, but they don't know what you went through. It's impossible for them to ever know.
Yeah.
So when you're sitting there and you're telling them these things like, dude, like, I don't understand the meaning of life anymore. Like, no one wants to hear that.
Right.
Like, then you're just kind of like, you're projecting that on top of somebody else, and like, that's not healthy for them,
right.
You know? So to be able to find places to actually deal with that, and again, learn tools, you know, I have like a lot of tools where, you know, you wake up in the morning, ask yourself what your mood is, you know, like something as simple as that, where you're like, scale from 1 to 10, how am I feeling right now? Because that's going to trigger the rest of the day. You know, like if I'm a 1 out of 10, I'm going to be irritable, I'm going to be short, I'm going to, you know, so let's improve that. Let's not go down that road, you know, just simple things like that where to you know, things that you wish that they taught you in school as opposed to like your state bird, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like how to actually deal with your emotional distress would be fantastic. It's so sad that this country deals with it the way that it does and shames people for it. And I'm not ashamed in any way to say that I went through this stuff and it's hard and it's difficult. And like I said, I have moments where I just start just crying out of fucking nowhere for God knows what reason. You know, I mean, like, dude, when you go through something like that, and again, another point that I think is interesting is that, you know, you guys have clearly had these moments in your lives that are these super tragic things that you have to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
My moment happened 2 years ago for me. So all of those lyrics came before that, you know? So I think that that's really interesting. And then I think now talking in retrospect about them, it makes me feel differently about them a lot. And it makes me feel most of the time like I had no idea how bad it could have been.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But in the same regard, like, I think, you know, everything's relative and a lot of this stuff is universal. And I tend to pride myself on kind of focusing things in a universal way. So I think that, like, if anything, I'm looking back on a song like Walls or a song like In the Morning or a song like, you know, Bloom or whatever, and just being like, what does that mean to me now?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And I'm almost you guys in that situation or something where I'm like looking at it from a different perspective now, and possibly what your perspective had been all along.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting for me to think that I might have tapped into that with such little experience with how difficult that actually could be.
Yeah, it's interesting because I loved the band before I got my act together, and I had certain attachments to certain songs. And then once I got my shit together and, like, you know, got off everything, the songs took on completely new meanings. So, and I was like, these guys must be going through exactly what I'm going through, because this is exactly what's going on in my life right now.
Yeah, I think I also was, I think I had, you know, severe depression that I just did not address until I had to, you know? And I think it got so bad after my surgery that was when I knew I had to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so I think that there was a lot of those issues too. I mean, like, yeah, I have a lot of things that I just bury kind of deep down, and those are what manifest themselves in the lyrics of the songs, you know? And those are the things that people, they go to music for because you can't really go anywhere else for, you know what I mean? And I think that that's why that was actually there, you know what I mean? And not now, because honestly, after I went through that, I was like, well, damn, like, I got something to write about now, you know? And writing about it was impossible. It was really, you know, interesting to me how hard it was, because when it's that bad, you can't even put it into words, you know? It's just like, it's indescribable. So I think I had to get over my idea of, like, I'm going to write 10 records about this, you know, because I don't think it'll be 10 years before I can actually sit down and write about that specific experience, you know?
Yeah. When you were telling me the story, I was surprised that Parallel Lives wasn't about that time, because, you know, I've gone back. I got into Parallel Lives. That was probably like at the worst of all my issues, and I didn't realize, like, that's a pretty sad album. So, like, I've gone back and listened to it in more modern times, and I'm like, wow, this is really sad. But I didn't realize, because, like, you know, I was listening to it at my worst. So I'm just like, oh, okay, this is music.
Yeah, and it definitely has like a bright texture to it a lot of times.
Yes.
It's not very it doesn't have like a dark sound to it.
No.
So I think that, like, that kind of evades some of the subject matter. But like a song like Fade is another one where I thought, you know, I'm really proud of it, and it's one of my favorite songs that I've ever written, but it's impossible for me to listen to it. And, like, I'm betting that a lot of people don't listen to it because it's hard to listen to, you know? So
yeah.
It's probably one of those things where I was like, why didn't that song completely why isn't everyone telling me that's the best song I've ever written? It's like, because it's fucking, no one listens to it because they turn on, they're like, yo, that's ugh. It's like me in the bar being like, you know what really sucks, like, so,
Yeah.
but yeah, that record's definitely also, and it was the beginning of me kind of going through those things and not really knowing what it was too. So,
Yeah.
Whether or not that actually played a total role in it, I think there was definitely elements of me just being like not feeling great, kind of translating to that. It definitely translated to the way I sang on that record a lot too. I know a lot of people were like, including the label Pure Noise that we were on for those two records, like got the demos and we thought they were going to hear them and be like, these guys, they did it. Like we thought we wrote the fucking magnum opus, and I honestly think I thought we became a band on that record, and
Yeah.
I'll defend it to the core because I think it's the first record I ever made where I was like, holy shit, we're a band now, guys. Like,
Yeah.
this is actually like us, and it's not just like post rock with vocals, I felt like it actually was like we had a style there,
Yes.
and I remember the label hearing it and being like, why aren't you like yelling like you used to do, and me just being like,
Oh,
man. And because like honestly I couldn't, and I remember like recovering from the surgery and going for like a little bit of like, like what I used to do and being like, fuck yeah, I'm back, baby, like, because it was really hard. And honestly, the kind of singing I'm doing on Parallel is fucking impossible too. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, but I think it was a lot of the reason why it wasn't so aggressive, and it was definitely more of like a major key kind of uppity feeling record.
Right. Yeah, I did notice that Bloom and Breathe was like way more in your face and a little harder with more screaming and that kind of stuff. But I don't know. When I heard Parallel Lives, I never thought like, oh, they're not doing that anymore. I just thought like, this is a fucking cool record.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people probably felt that way. I think I probably read the 3 comments online of people who like thought it was soft or something. You know what I mean? It's again like, and that was probably the worst of the worst time for me because that record wasn't accepted by like the people who were in charge of it, really. And
Yeah.
we were like, like it was pretty clear the label didn't think it was going to go anywhere, and we were like about to tour with Thrice. It was like our dream come true,
Yeah.
and we were playing for the biggest crowds we ever played for, and they weren't really resonating with it because I think Thrice fans again probably would have, if Bloom and Breathe was coming out right at the head of that tour, it probably would have been different.
Yeah.
But I was thinking so much like that. The stuck clung to the past thing, like the this would have been totally different if XYZ happened.
Right.
And we were in the van driving from this show to that show, spending the whole time being like, you know what, if this person would have done this right, we would have been, and not thinking like, you know what, maybe we just write another record.
Yeah.
Like it was just, we put everything we had into that record, man. I mean, we did it for every record. We put everything we have in everything, but that was something we wrote together in a basement with no outside opinions. No one heard it except for like the producer until we were like finishing the songs.
Mm-hmm.
And we really thought people were going to hear it and be like, oh man, this is like, this is their record, and even like, dude, I remember, like some of the Law Dispute, like Brad from Law Dispute was like, dude, this is your Wildlife. And that Wildlife is like a masterpiece record that they wrote. And I'm like, this is a guy that I'm like, really like, I look up to and is a great musician. And he's telling me this record is like amazing. And then like, no one's buying it,
Yeah.
So, it was just a weird feeling. It definitely was defeating for us. And we kind of disbanded after that. In 2017, because we kind of just were like, well, we can't really do it anymore. Like, I don't really want to go. We started writing music shortly after that, and it felt like we were trying to go back. It felt like we were going back and like retreading stuff because we felt like we had to. And we stopped ourselves really quickly because it was like, this is the first time anything we've done has ever felt forced. So let's just stop, and I'm glad we took that break.
Yeah. That's a great decision, though. In that moment, like when you're trying to like, you're forcing something and you're feeling like, oh, let's do this, let's try this, and it's like, if it doesn't feel right, you're just like, fuck this, man. Like, because it's something that comes out of, like, it's that organic, real emotion. It's something that's authentic. And when you feel like you're forcing it, it's that never-ending cycle of you doubt yourself and you try to continue harder and you doubt yourself even more because you're like, am I putting too much effort into it? It's that self-defeating idea. And I think that's one of the best things people can do is when they recognize they're in that, just cutting it, being like, fuck it.
Definitely, man. Like, let's look at it in two perspectives, right? Like, we made Parallel, and it was what we wanted to make, and it was everything we wanted to do, and it didn't do as well as we wanted it to do. Now, I can walk away from that and be like, I made a record that I love and think is amazing and will be happy with until the day I die.
Yeah.
Versus, I'm going to try to make a record that maybe will sell a couple more units, and then if it doesn't do well, then I just wrote a record that I don't even think is good.
Yeah.
That was forced, that doesn't have any, and then there's obvious reasons why no one connected to it, right? It's like, we write emotionally resonant music. If I don't care about it, like, no one else is going to, you know? So it was a fantastic decision because it allowed us to put things into perspective. And Ethan moved back to Nebraska after that. And, you know, he was there for like 6 months, and we kind of, you know, I started kind of trying to write like a solo record that I'll probably never finish because I'm so bad at finishing stuff without collaborators. And, you know, then all of a sudden Ethan was like, I'm moving back. And we just started playing again. And we kind of played 2 of the songs that we were writing, you know, before, and we finished them. And then we wrote a 3rd song. And that 3rd song, we were like, okay, this is new. This is fresh. Mm-hmm. Let's start here. And so we started writing new stuff, and, you know, it feels like, it feels the opposite of forced. It feels like amazing, and like that we're writing our best material, and like we're being the most creative we've ever been. And it's also the easiest to write the songs because everyone knows each other now, and we know everything about our, you know, our strengths and weaknesses. And it's so much easier to kind of be like, to abandon the ones that aren't working out, you know what I mean? Like, and to really focus energy on the ones that we love, and to chase ones that we maybe think are worth the fight, even if they're not working out right away. And like, all those decisions are really hard to make when you're a young band. And when you've been playing together for like 10 years, it kind of becomes easy. So we kind of found a rhythm with that. And the really difficult part has actually been finishing the actual recordings, especially now that, you know, the pandemic hits. So
what's coming up? I've seen that you guys are recording on social media, and I'm very excited about that. Is there any plans for the new tracks?
Yeah, so like I was saying, we started recording, and we started doing it in a different way, because I think the first thing we decided when we got back together was like, no rules from anybody. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest problems, I think, with doing a record is that sometimes some things get missed because you have to do it all in one chunk.
Yeah.
Parallel, we were really lucky because Mike Watts gave us a month in the studio for that record, which in these days is stupid. So I don't know what he's just like, you know, he's just our dude, and was like, yeah, like he knew it'd be fun to make. So he knew we'd be screwing around every day with whatever the hell. So we decided, you know, what's the best way to do that without like completely emptying out our entire savings. So we were like, let's write a song at a time and go in and record it. So when it's fresh and new to us and exciting, and we just came up with it, we're going to go record it, you know? And then a pandemic happened. Mm-hmm. So the problem with that becomes, well, we're like 2/3 of the way through recording and writing, you know, like, so everything is like, we recorded the first song in September of last year. So almost a year ago now. Mm. But the last one we tracked was in February. So it's kind of like, now you're getting to the point where it's like stuff is getting old. Like the first song we wrote is starting to feel old to me, yeah. You know? Gotcha. So that's kind of become where we're realizing, like, and I had rough mixes of like first pass mixes of a couple of songs, and we were going to release them before this, but we've kind of changed our plans because the release can't really be the way it was originally intended because of the pandemic, because we can't get together and finish writing a large batch of the material that we were working on, because it would take a lot of work. The songs are there, but they're at the beginning stages. You know, we need to like get together as a band and finish them.
Mm-hmm.
And because we don't know when the next time we're going to be able to safely do that is, like, we kind of had to like decide what to do. And, you know, credit to the guys, we kind of had a Zoom call, and, you know, I get really stuck on like certain things, and I love creating concepts and like finding themes in the record.
Mm-hmm.
And I found, you know, I ultimately have to ask myself what the record's about, typically to title it. And I like, was like, holy shit, this record is really about, you know, this particular thing. This is really cool. Oh, you know, we should start it with this song. We should end it with this. And then all of a sudden everything kind of comes into place. And then we're like, well, we're not going to be able to record these songs. We're not going to be able to finish and record these songs in a year, 2 years. And by then, the first song we recorded is going to be like 3 years old, you know? So we're like, what can we do to actually like put this out? So we have one more song that we're going to try to record.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually finished written, so we don't have to actually write it. We just have to get into the studio and record it.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, we were going to record it that weekend. We were in the studio like right before this all happened. And we were like, nah, we don't have enough time. Like, let's just do the one song. And I'm glad we did, because like the one song we did, you know, I'm of course like, let's fucking do all this crazy recording bullshit, which sounds fucking amazing. I'm really glad I did it, but it took up so much time. We were like, well, we're gonna want to put this much time into the other track too. So we have that one more track we have to do, and I'm actually going to record all of the vocals for it this week.
Oh, good.
So I was gonna go 2 days ago, but then he's got a studio or a band in his studio right now. So we're kind of trying to figure out the safest way to do it, because I'm, you know, obviously still very, I want to do it responsibly, you know, and so yeah, like we're working on new stuff, and it's like really close to being done. You know, it's just that this situation has definitely changed it. And honestly, I think what we came up with for how to release it, I'm more excited about than I was about the original idea, because it just feels like succinct and right to me, you know? And like, I think like when I started looking at the songs we have and the music we have, like, I was like, you know what, this actually makes perfect sense to put out this way. And like, it contains like a really interesting narrative arc to it. And, you know, I think the songs I think it's easier to digest the songs in that format. So we had a lot of interesting ideas for how to release. We didn't even want to do like a traditional record. You know, I wanted it to be easier to kind of focus in on each track, you know, because we put so much time and effort into each song. Why put them all out at once and then 6 of them don't even get heard, you know? So hopefully this way there'll be a little more focus on each song, because we honestly did like really put everything we had into it yet again, you know? And I think it's, you know, I'm really, really proud of it and happy that we continue to make music, and I'm really excited for people to hear it. And I'm excited that, you know, hopefully it'll come out relatively soon, because, you know, we didn't have tours lined up or anything. We were still kind of in like a hiatus when we were writing, you know, we were kind of waiting to have stuff to then pitch to, you know, labels and whatever, to kind of like figure out what we wanted to do or self-release it. We don't really know. So we weren't sure yet, you know, and this is kind of definitely put it in a weird spot where we're even less sure, but you know, there's so many bands that are in the same position, so it's not really a huge concern for me. I just want to get it done and have it out, because I think Dan, our drummer, said it the best. He was like, we're going to write more songs, you know? So we were like, you're right. Let's just put these out and write more songs.
Well, we look forward to this new release, hopefully when it comes out soon. And listen, we just want to thank you for coming on the show. This was really awesome. And your music has, you know, Tommy and I have just really connected over it. And I mean, every release we just love. So, we're really looking forward to the next one.
Well, thank you guys for having me, and thanks for listening to our band, and for sticking with us. And I know it's like 2016 is the last time we put out anything, and we toured maybe once after that, but to still have you guys reaching out now and wanting to talk to me, and know that our music is still kind of out there and people are waiting to hear what we're doing next and anticipating that, it's exciting for us, because ultimately we just love each other's company and playing music. Like I said, I feel like really grateful I met these guys, and this is my band for life. These guys are like, they're the people that I love creating music with, and they're the people who send me these ideas that I'm never not going to just be inspired by, so that's what we do it for. But also we have this kind of like extended family of people that listen to our music now, and I've met so many cool people through that, and people who connect with it, like you guys, and that's really important to us too. So it's cool to be able to talk to you guys, and that you're still kind of here with us, and I'm happy for that. So
oh yeah, man, we're not going anywhere. So when you were playing a show again, you played St. Vitus with Glassing and a bunch of other bands, I was like, fuck yes, they're back. So whenever you're playing around this area, I'll 100% be there. And thank you to Kevin and the rest of the band for writing so much awesome music.
Yeah, thank you guys, man. And hopefully live shows will come back soon, and we will be playing some. So, and if not, we'll figure out a way to do it.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to it. Thanks, Kevin. Okay, everybody, so now we're here with friend of the show and returning guest, Josh Brigham of Hopesfall. Josh, welcome back to the show.
It's great to be back. I'm stoked to be chatting with you guys again.
This is so awesome. It's only been a couple months since you've been on the show, and I feel like my entire life is completely different. It's wild. Do you feel like that at all?
I don't. I don't. I'm still doing the same things. I'm still doing beer stuff with the brewery that I work for, and I'm still teaching foundation training as much as I can.
Yeah, I saw you launched the Instagram page. How's that going?
It's great, actually. There's gyms that have reopened here in Charlotte in the sense that you can do outdoor stuff with people distanced.
That's cool. That's good.
So, yeah, and I've been happy to do that, and people have been happy to, participate in that scenario, in that setting. And but I'm still doing plenty of stuff online, just through FaceTime, like teaching people, and yeah,
that's good. That's good.
I'm happy.
So I wanted to get you on because, as we know, Hum has released their first new album in 22 years. INLET. I haven't gotten a chance to talk to anybody about it yet, and we are Hum super fans.
We are.
Now, we are big time.
We are. Yes, that is correct.
Now, when the day the album was posted, I saw there was a vinyl announcement, like they're selling the vinyl. So I'm like, great. At some point, I'm going to be able to hear the new Hum album. And I texted you. I was like, new Hum album, and you're like, yeah. And then I go to the Polyvinyl site and I see there's a new song. And I was like, and I text you and I was like, new song. And you're like, what? And then I go to Hum's Instagram page and they said the whole album is up on Bandcamp. And I was so scared because, like, that nervous, anxious, like, excitement you get when when a band you really, really love has a new album out and you're like, is it going to be good? Is it going to be bad? Is it going to be great? Like that anticipation.
Yeah, no, I remember I was sitting outside of a Quick Trip gas station when the news hit, and a barrage of text messages and emails like kind of come, and it's like everybody's on like red alert. and so I'm sitting in the gas station parking lot, just head buried in my phone, sending text messages and like trying to figure out, okay, how do I order this vinyl to make sure that I get it now? How do I get, let me make sure I've got every Like, I was like, do I have Bandcamp? I don't even. So I went, like, got that, made sure I had it. And then I'm just listening to the record, and like people are texting me like, oh shit. And, I had like 10 threads going. That was just the Hum record. I got very little done that a day.
Oh,
other than listening to the Hum record.
Isn't it funny? It's like you're almost part of it. You're like handling all this communication and sending out all these messages because like a band you like released an LP.
I felt very important, but in a very tertiary way.
I thought it was funny as Keith texted me all excited. He's like, there's a brand new Him album. I was like, what?
Great.
Like the Heartagram band? Like that one that's like Bam's band? Like, what the fuck do you care, dude? And he's like, and then I get like a text like 2 seconds later. I meant Hum. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes way more sense.
God damn it, Siri. How did you fuck this up?
Tommy almost quit the podcast because
I was
he
like,
thought I was a Hum or a Him super fan.
Yeah, dude. I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I didn't know. I couldn't wrap my head around it. I was like, has he told me that he's a big Him fan and I just wasn't listening, or I kind of tuned it out? Like, oh, this is just like one of Keith's guilty pleasures. And then, but like, you sent it to me in like all caps. I was like, what the fuck is he excited for? It made no sense to me.
So I finally listened to the album. Well, not finally. I mean, I put it on pretty soon.
Immediately.
Yeah. And right away, I'm like, this is it. This is it. Like the first song, what's the first? Waves. Yes. It was just like pure Hum, excellent, cycling through the songs. And then I get to the summoning. Now, when to this day, when I hear the leads in that song, like I get chills every time. It was just everything I had hoped for and more. Because when a band is like inactive for a really long time, sometimes they come back and go in a different direction, which can be cool. Or sometimes, I don't know, sometimes it's just off. Like something's not there. But I think this is spot on, and I like every single song on the album. What do you think, Josh?
I think that everyone that I've talked to that's a Hum fan feels the exact same way. That they were like, you know what? This is a progression. Obviously, it's been 22 years since Downward to Heavenward came out. Yeah. And it went in a way, and it took me a few listens to be like, because it was just like, I was in shock. I just didn't know what to make of it. I mean, obviously, track 4, oh God, now that we're talking about it, I'm losing.
Step Into You.
Right before the summoning. And that was my like standout, like, okay, this is a Hum track. It sounds like Electra 2000 or something. Yes. And, everything else was a little more like stonery and vibey and almost even dreamier.
Yeah.
Because it was like spaced out and like even more mid-tempo, almost down-tempo. But man, I mean, it hits, and it hits on all the right spots, and you just get lost in it. And I don't know, it makes a lot of sense. You put it in context of the rest of the catalog, and I immediately want to jump to like, all right, what songs are they going to play live off this record to put like a master set together that I'm going to be fucking stoked about, know? So dude, I was thrilled. I'm still thrilled.
Yeah. It's very rocking. It's a very rocking album. Like the summoning is like almost like straight up Soundgarden. It's massive. It's awesome.
It's amazing. Yeah. And it's just it's riffs on riffs, you know. The only thing that I was going to say that like I love Brian St. Pierre as a drummer so much, and it feels like he pulled back a little bit to kind of sit more in the pocket with some of the stuff, and that's fine. It's like I know what the guy's capable of, and I just want to hear these songs live because I want to see like what does he do to like spice it up and add in like little nuggets of him. You know what I mean? Not
him. The band him.
Not the band him, but like Mr. St. Pierre.
But it's like his own flair. No, of course. But like putting his own flair on it, what's it going to sound like? Those nuances, like when it's live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have one minor complaint, it's I was hoping for like one soul crushing track, like similar to Apollo, like a really sad one. But there wasn't a song like that. But I mean, we got like 10 great songs or however many it is, so it's all
8,
good.
But it's an hour.
Yeah, there's a couple 8-minute songs on there.
Yeah.
Like 8-minute plus.
And they never had those 8-minute plus songs prior to this. And but it just feels very natural. It feels very hum. I mean, it's those guys jamming. They're just being who they are, and this is who they are now.
Yeah, and it was such a pleasant surprise given how shitty this year has been for many, many people. And, you know, it's been a difficult year for me. But this was just a great surprise because I knew that album was coming, but I had no idea when.
Right. They'd been hinting at it, and there'd been talks of it for foreshadowing for, I swear to God, like a decade. Right? Like, you just didn't know. And the fact that they decided, like, oh, it's June 2020. Let's do it this Tuesday. And just let's just throw it out there. No one knows it's coming.
So just excellent album. And Josh, you and Hopesfall have a history with Matt. Are you in any kind of communication with him where you would reach out and be like, yo, good stuff?
I did. Yeah? I texted him. I texted Matt, and I was like, hey, man, like, just tuning into the record. I don't text him all the time. I don't want to bug the guy.
Exactly.
You know, but I've got his number, you know, and it's like, hey, man, we're all tuned in. We're all stoked. This is great. Super excited for you guys. You know, big love from the Hopesfall camp. And he just texted back like, oh, so glad you enjoy it. Like, great to hear from you. Hope all is well.
I also sent several glowing messages like that through several mediums with, of course, an offer to come on the show. I haven't heard back yet, but my fingers are crossed. So maybe that will happen. Maybe that will happen one day. That would be a dream guest. And I have an idea for you, Josh.
Okay.
It's probably an idea you've had before, but Hopesfall Tour 2021. What do you think?
I think I would literally drop whatever it was that I was doing to make that happen.
Yeah, like birth of a child, you know, relative in the hospital, anything.
Oh, yeah, those things aren't important. In the grand scheme of things, I mean, to be like, yo, I got to go play shows with my favorite band ever. Yeah. Like, sorry, sweetheart. I mean, you got this. There's nothing I'm really going to do at the birth here. What do you want me to do? Like, feed you some ice cubes? They have hospital techs for that.
Oh, yeah. Just film it. We'll catch up later.
I got to go play this show. I mean, come on. But no. We would love to, you know, if that's a thing. Once shows get happening again, I mean, we would love to be thrown into the mix. I'm sure every band is just itching to play right now. Every freaking band in the world that had plans this year is like scratching, just like, oh, come on. Let's get on with it already. Let's go play some shows. Can you imagine like the level of shows? Like, how many shows are you going to go to? Like, you're going to buy like every pre-sale thing and like figure it out.
I thought about that yesterday. I was like, I'm going to go see bands I don't even really care about. I'm just like, you know, whatever's happening at St. Vitus, I'm going over there. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. How close do you live to St. Vitus?
I could walk there in half an hour.
That's a cool little spot, man. We were really excited when we got to play there. Like, that's such a fun place.
It's a great venue.
It's a great venue.
And it's a great neighborhood. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's my favorite place to see shows.
That's so cool that you could just have that and go walk to that.
Is there any news on the Hopesfall front?
No.
I'm
sorry. Yeah, nothing. We're all just like kind of twiddling our thumbs, being like, when would it be acceptable to start practicing again in hopefully preparation to shows being a possibility later? We don't even know. I still haven't touched a guitar.
Really?
Oh, wow.
I still haven't touched a guitar this whole time.
Yeah. You know what? I did open mine to write a riff. There was a riff that I came up with, and then I was like, let me see if I remember how to play it. So I opened up my guitar case real quick and then played it. And then I was like, okay, that's good.
It's still there.
Yeah, so I can remember it if I need to. But yeah, I haven't really done anything musical at all because I'm doing this.
Yeah, I haven't done a thing. But this is cool though, like that you guys have like gotten this up and running in this time period. I was talking to Brendan from Circa because he's got his podcast up and running.
You talked to him the other day, right?
Yeah, we chatted the other day. We didn't finish. Like, we're gonna have to get back on again because it was so late at night. And but we talked about this podcast and but like it's weird, the creative things and the things that have come about due to COVID. And you would think like, oh, this is a perfect time to just like stockpile and write music. And clearly it worked out for Taylor Swift.
Oh yeah,
dude. Which I listened to that record again. And it's good.
Now. What is it? Is it just a new Taylor Swift record? Because I saw you posted she's guesting with Bon Iver and
Bon Iver. How do we say it? I still don't know.
I think it's Bon Iver because I think it means I think it's good winter in French. I'm relying on 3 years of high school French to do that, so don't quote me on that.
Whatever, dude. We all know you're an intellectual. You're part of the intelligentsia. You explained this to us the last time. You're like, I teach math, and everyone was in reverence. They were like, oh, this guy's actually fucking smart. He's not just some like fucking stoner scene kid.
Keep in mind, I teach 6th grade math, so I teach like pre-algebra stuff.
Dude, Keith, could you do a pre-algebra problem right now on the spot?
Absolutely not. Math was my worst subject in school.
Yeah,
absolute worst.
Well, I will say this. It's funny. I couldn't do like the more advanced algebra when I got to the higher level classes. I remember a couple times I would do all my work at the library on Saturday morning, so I would reserve one of the quiet rooms in the back. And I remember I opened up a unit and I sat on like, I don't know, probably about 5 or 10 minutes, and I really just put my head in my hands and I was like, what kind of mistake did you just make? Like, you just committed to take all of these courses, and I'm looking at a problem going like, I don't even know what one of the symbols was in the problem. It was a sigma symbol, and I was like, I don't even know what that is. Like, I had to like look all this stuff up. I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna take a lifetime. And in my head, I'm going like, I have a pregnant wife and twin 5-year-olds sitting back at my house waiting for me to get back. Like, this is me trying to get my work done in a quiet space. And I'm like, I have made a gigantic mistake. But the nice part is like, once you get...
going to bring food home.
But once you get back into the habit of it, it really does start to click. Like, there's parts you remember and you go, oh yeah, that's why that works. Like, and then it depends on who's teaching it to you too. Like, I did a lot of stuff through... like just searching YouTube videos, and I found some really good tutors on YouTube for free where they would explain a really complicated problem in, 2.5, 3 minutes. And by the time you were done watching it, you were like, oh, that's not nearly as complicated as the problem actually sounds. So taking that intimidation factor out is huge.
Not only have you offered up how you overcame a problem by, figuring something out and like finding different resources and stuff like that. But you've also given me an excuse, and I can blame my teachers for my lack of understanding because I didn't have a good one, clearly.
Guys, I have a question. Yeah. How do we always end up talking about math for like fucking 10 minutes when Josh is here?
I don't know. I don't know. What did we... How did we end up talking about math?
I'm pointing a virtual finger at Josh on this one. I didn't even bring it up.
I'm going to point a virtual finger at Mike Shaw because it's like I saw on his Instagram today a picture
the
of
math
him wearing
shirt.
a math shirt. So I'm going to say that somehow that's I just don't want to be culpable for any of my own mistakes. I'm looking to lay blame elsewhere. I don't give a fuck.
Tommy, I have another question for you.
Yeah.
Do you breathe when you talk? Because when you're talking, like you keep going.
Oh, I don't know.
And like there's like not a break. How do you like get oxygen?
I do that thing that people that play didgeridoos do. It's that cycle breathing. That's how they can keep that notation. No, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think one of the things is
wait. Don't start up yet. Because then there's another thing. Like when I go to edit, like usually someone will make a statement and then stop. And then that's like a good point for me to cut it and do something. But you'll connect sentences Because you'll be like, and the thing is, and then sentence, and this sentence is sentence. Like it just keeps going. It's incredible.
He's a teacher. He's got to, like, you can't let the kids, like, get a fucking word in edgewise, you know, or nothing's going to get accomplished. It's a skill to be able to just be like cogent idea, like just put the whole fucking thing together, you know, and just no breaks, just bam, 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 bam.
It is. I have to piece it together to make myself sound like competent because I like stutter and trip over words. So that, you know, like, but Tommy, he can just take it, man.
If you could have just edited out some of those likes I was saying, like, God damn, dude. Like, I said like so fucking much. Really, it really drew me to it. So now I'm trying to consciously, actively not do that.
Listening to yourself on this show will make you a much better orator. I've improved a lot over these months.
I actually, I've listened to a couple of the episodes, like in bits and pieces, like when I'm doing work downstairs, and there's a couple sections on the Brad Truax one where I'm like, I literally put my head in my hands and I'm like, oh no, like just stop, like just stop talking, please. It's just me yammering, and I'm like, and it's the worst part is it's like me like waxing philosophical about life. I'm like, fuck, I sound like such an ass. Like just stop talking, like. Please, like just, and I'm
this
literally
is in the emo category. You can wax philosophical. Right?
I'm literally pleading with a YouTube video, like stop talking for the love of God, just. But no,
again, you're listening to it on YouTube.
Yeah, dude, bro.
No, I'm just messing around.
Subscribe already on Spotify. Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah, Tommy, subscribe to our. Oh wait, you are subscribed to me. Yeah, I was going to say we could use the subscribers. Well, boys, we're at the end of the hour here. So, Josh, I want to thank you for hopping on with us and catching up. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
It's a pleasure to be on. It's a pleasure to talk with you, gentlemen.
Yes.
Man, thank you so much.
To all of our wonderful listeners, remember to subscribe to us and review us and like us and comment and share and all those wonderful things that help us out. Spread the word. Because this is a good podcast. I mean, who wouldn't want to listen to this? Oh, one quick final question for Josh. Better podcast, Off the Beat with Brendan Ekstrom or The Northeast Scene with Keith and Tommy?
Oh,
go.
God damn, dude. That's fucking rough.
I know. I'm just kidding. I just wanted to put you on the spot. Brendan is a wonderful close friend of ours. And folks, check out his podcast too, because why not? The more the merrier.
Absolutely.
Josh, thank you, and thanks everybody for listening, and until next time.